You are standing in front of someone who has just asked you a simple question in English. You understood the question, you know the answer, you have learned the vocabulary, you have studied the grammar. Somewhere inside your mind, the sentence exists. But when you open your mouth, nothing comes out. For 2 painful seconds, your brain searches through everything you have ever learned. You translate, you correct, you reject one sentence, you build another. You worry about pronunciation, you imagine the other person judging you. Then, by the time you finally speak, the answer sounds smaller, weaker, and less natural than the idea you wanted to express. This is not a knowledge problem, it is an access problem. Most English learners spend years putting information into the mind, but almost no time training the mind to retrieve that information at speaking speed. They collect words. They memorize rules, they watch lessons, they complete exercises. They understand more every month, yet speaking still feels like lifting something heavy. They know English, but they cannot reach it quickly. Their knowledge is stored like books in a dark library with no clear system. When conversation begins, the mind runs from shelf to shelf searching for the right sentence while the moment quietly disappears. The purpose of this audiobook is to change that system. You do not need to become a different person before you can speak English naturally. You do not need a perfect memory, a special talent, or a native accent. You need to rewire the path between meaning and speech. You need to train your brain so that an idea does not have to travel through fear, translation, grammar analysis, and self-correction before it reaches your mouth. You need to build a faster road. Right now, you may be using English through a slow mental process. First, you decide what you want to say in your own language. Then you search for English words. Then you arrange those words according to grammar. Then you examine the sentence for mistakes. Then you try to pronounce it. Every stage creates delay. Every delay increases pressure. Every moment of pressure makes your mind more likely to go blank. The problem becomes a cycle. You hesitate because the process is slow, and the process becomes even slower because you are afraid of hesitating. Automatic speaking does not mean speaking without thought. It means speaking without unnecessary mental traffic. It means your brain has practiced common ideas, situations, patterns, and responses so deeply that they are ready when you need them. You do not create every sentence from zero. You retrieve useful language in meaningful pieces. You do not translate every thought. You learn to connect English directly with images, intentions, emotions, and situations. You do not wait for perfect certainty. You begin speaking with what you have, then guide the sentence while it is moving. This is what fluent speakers do, even when English is their second or third language. They are not always using more difficult vocabulary than you. They are often using familiar language with faster access. They have trained the path. A simple phrase reaches their mouth before doubt can block it. They know how to continue when one word disappears. They know how to rephrase. They know how to buy time naturally. They know how to stay inside the conversation instead of stepping outside it to inspect every sentence. You can build the same ability. But this book will not give you another collection of motivational promises. It will not tell you to believe in yourself and then leave you with the same habits. Confidence without training collapses under pressure. Real confidence comes from evidence. It comes from hearing yourself answer faster than last week. It comes from explaining an idea without translating every sentence. It comes from recovering when you forget a word. It comes from repeating a speaking pattern until your mouth no longer fears it. Confidence is not the beginning of automatic speaking. Confidence is one of its results. Throughout this audiobook, you will learn how the English-speaking mind is built. You will understand why recognition is easier than retrieval, why knowing a word is not the same as being able to use it, and why your inner voice may be keeping English at a distance. You will learn how to connect language with real situations, install flexible sentence frames, train fast recall, develop an English inner monologue, and turn passive vocabulary into active speech. You will learn how to stop waiting for complete sentences before you begin, how to manage mistakes without losing momentum, and how to practice response speed without producing robotic English. You will also learn why emotion matters. Speaking is not only a language event. It is a nervous system event. Your brain may perform well alone and fail in front of another person because the presence of judgment changes your attention. If you do not train under controlled pressure, your English may remain trapped in comfortable practice. We will teach your mind to stay present when someone is waiting for your answer, when the topic changes unexpectedly, and when you cannot find the exact word you want. The goal is not to eliminate every pause. Native speakers pause. The goal is not to remove every mistake. Fluent speakers make mistakes. The goal is not to speak at maximum speed. Fast speech without clear thought is not fluency. The goal is to reduce the distance between what you mean and what you can say. The goal is to make English available when life asks for it. Imagine that someone asks, "What do you think about working from home?" Instead of translating the entire answer, your mind immediately reaches for a structure. I think it depends on the person. For me, the biggest advantage is the structure gives you movement. Once you are moving, ideas begin to appear. Or imagine you forget the word commute. Instead of freezing, you say, "The time you spend traveling to work." You keep the conversation alive. This ability is more valuable than perfect vocabulary because real speaking rewards flexibility, not memorized perfection. Automatic speaking grows from thousands of small connections. A situation connects with a phrase. A feeling connects with an expression. A question connects with an opening response. A forgotten word connects with a rephrasing strategy. A moment of uncertainty connects with a natural way to continue. Over time, these connections form a system. The system becomes faster. The faster system feels more natural. What once required effort begins to feel familiar. That is what rewiring means. It does not mean changing your personality. It means changing the route your brain uses. It means replacing translation with direct association, replacing isolated vocabulary with usable patterns, replacing silent understanding with active retrieval, replacing perfectionism with intelligent movement, and replacing random practice with deliberate repetition. This book is designed for serious learners. Some parts will challenge the way you currently study. You may discover that activities that make you feel productive are not training the skill you actually want. Reading another vocabulary list may feel easier than answering an unexpected question. Watching another English video may feel safer than recording your voice. Reviewing grammar may feel cleaner than speaking imperfectly. But the mind adapts to what you repeatedly ask it to do. If you repeatedly recognize English, you become good at recognition. If you repeatedly retrieve and speak English, you become better at speaking. The question is not whether you have studied enough. The question is whether your practice has trained the exact moment in which you currently fail. If you freeze after a question, train immediate openings. If you translate, train direct meaning. If you know words but cannot use them, train retrieval. If your sentences collapse after 5 words, train continuation patterns. If you fear mistakes, train recovery. If you speak well alone but not with people, train controlled pressure. Every problem has a trainable layer. Before we begin, subscribe to the Speaking Reset and become part of a community that is not interested in collecting English forever. This channel exists to help you reset the way you learn, think, listen, and speak. And in the comments, write one sentence. I will train access, not only knowledge. That sentence is the foundation of everything that follows. You already have more English inside you than your speaking currently shows. The purpose of this audiobook is to release it, not through magic, not through empty confidence, through a new mental system practiced until it becomes automatic. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Why your mind goes blank when you know the answer. Going blank feels mysterious because it happens so quickly. One moment you understand the conversation. The next moment your mind feels empty. You may describe it by saying, "I forgot all my English." But that is not what happened. Your English did not disappear. Your access to it became blocked. To understand this, imagine 2 rooms inside your mind. In the first room is recognition. In the second room is retrieval. Recognition helps you understand English when you see or hear it. Retrieval helps you produce English without being shown the answer. Recognition is easier because the language is already in front of you. Retrieval is harder because your brain must find, select, organize, and produce the language by itself. This explains a common frustration. You see the word improve and immediately understand it. You hear someone say, "Things are improving," and you understand. But when you want to say that your pronunciation is getting better, the word may not arrive. You know it when someone gives it to you, but you cannot always retrieve it when you need it. The knowledge exists, but the path is weak. Traditional study often strengthens recognition far more than retrieval. Multiple choice questions train you to identify the correct answer. Subtitles train you to connect sound with visible text. Vocabulary lists train you to recognize definitions. Grammar exercises often give you the exact structure you are supposed to use. These activities are useful, but they do not fully prepare you for a real conversation in which nobody gives you 4 possible answers. Conversation begins with emptiness. Someone asks a question, and you must create a response. That empty space reveals the strength of your retrieval system. The mind goes blank when several demands arrive at the same time. You need an idea. You need vocabulary. You need grammar. You need pronunciation. You need to read the other person's reaction. You need to manage your emotions. You may also be translating. Each demand uses attention. Attention is limited. When too many processes compete for it, the system overloads. This overload is often mistaken for low ability. It is not. A person can understand advanced English and still freeze during a basic conversation, because speaking speed depends on automatic access, not only knowledge. The mind may contain the answer, but if every part of the sentence requires conscious control, there is not enough mental space left to communicate naturally. Think about learning to drive. At the beginning, you consciously think about mirrors, pedals, speed, distance, signals, and steering. A short journey feels mentally exhausting. Later, many actions become automatic. You still pay attention, but your attention is free for the road instead of being trapped in every movement of your hands and feet. Speaking develops in the same way. At first, grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation demand conscious effort. Through correct repetition, common patterns become automatic. Your attention becomes available for meaning. The first step is to stop judging a blank mind as evidence that you cannot speak English. That judgment adds another demand. Now your brain is not only searching for language, it is also defending your identity. You think, "Why am I so bad? I studied this. They must think I am stupid." Those thoughts consume the same attention you need for speaking. When the mind goes blank, your first responsibility is not to produce a perfect answer. Your first responsibility is to keep the speaking system open. A closed system is silent, tense, and self-critical. An open system begins with something available. It may say, "That is an interesting question." It may say, "I have never thought about that before," but it may say, "I am not completely sure, although I think." These phrases are not meaningless. They create time while keeping you inside English. They prevent the sudden fall into your first language. They tell your brain that speech has begun. Beginning matters because movement creates access. Many learners wait until the complete answer is ready. This is unrealistic. Even native speakers often discover their answer while speaking. They begin with an opening, then organize the thought as it develops. If you demand a finished sentence before your mouth moves, you place an impossible burden on working memory. Try this in your own language. Ask yourself a complex question you have never considered, such as whether technology makes people more patient or less patient. You probably will not create a perfect paragraph in silence and then recite it. You will begin with an uncertain idea. I think it probably makes people less patient because... Your speech helps you think. English must be allowed to do the same. The blank mind is often created by a false rule. I must know exactly what I am going to say before I start saying it. Replace that rule with a better one. I need only enough language to begin. Enough language might be 5 words. In my experience, the main problem, once those words leave your mouth, the next idea has a place to attach. The sentence becomes a road you build while walking. Another cause of blankness is excessive choice. A learner may know several possible words and several grammatical structures. Instead of selecting one quickly, the mind compares all of them. Should I say, "I have been," "I was," or "I went"? Is beneficial better than helpful? Should I use although or but? The desire to choose the best language delays the use of good language. Automatic speakers are not always choosing the perfect option. They are choosing an available option that communicates the meaning. They understand that a living conversation values momentum. You can improve a sentence after it exists. You cannot improve a sentence you never allow yourself to say. This does not mean grammar is unimportant. It means grammar should serve communication, not block it. During focused study, examine the difference between structures. During real speaking, use the strongest structure you can access quickly. If you notice an error, Correct it calmly and continue. I went there last week. Actually, I had gone there once before as well. Correction can happen inside fluent speech. It does not require emotional collapse. The mind also goes blank when a question is too broad. Tell me about yourself sounds simple, but it gives the brain too many possible directions. Your history, work, family, interests, goals, personality, and experiences all become available at once. The problem is not a lack of ideas. It is too many ideas without a structure. This is why automatic speaking requires mental frames. A frame limits the search. For tell me about yourself, you might use a three-part path: where you are now, what you have been doing, and what you are working toward. Now, the brain does not search your entire life. It moves through 3 rooms. You can create frames for common speaking tasks. When giving an opinion, state your position, give one reason, and add an example. When describing an experience, explain the situation, the main event, and the result. When comparing, name the common point, the main difference, and your preference. When explaining a problem, describe what is happening, why it matters, and what should happen next. These frames are not scripts to memorize word for word. They are roads. They reduce decision pressure so vocabulary can move. Let us return to the moment of blankness. Someone asks, would you rather work for a large company or a small company? Your old system may search for the perfect answer. Your new system begins. I would probably choose a smaller company. The main reason is that now you have chosen a direction. You can add, you often have more responsibility, or communication may be more direct, or it may be easier to see the effect of your work. The exact answer is less important than keeping the pathway active. To train this, practice what I call the 2-second opening. Ask yourself a question and begin speaking within 2 seconds. You do not need the full answer. You need only an opening phrase and a direction. I think the biggest reason is, for me, it depends on. The first thing that comes to mind is, I used to think, but now. At first, your answers may be simple. That is fine. Speed before complexity. A slow, complicated system does not become automatic by adding more complexity. It becomes automatic by making simple pathways reliable. Once a pathway is fast, you can add richer language. Do not confuse simple with childish. I think this matters because people need time to adapt. Is simple, clear, and useful. Many learners avoid sentences they can say because they are chasing sentences they cannot yet control. They want to sound advanced, so they become silent. Fluency grows when you use your current English fully, not when you hide it beneath your future ambitions. You should also train recovery phrases. A fluent mind is not a mind that never loses a word. It is a mind that knows what to do next. If a word disappears, say, I cannot remember the exact word, but it means, if you lose your direction, say, let me explain that in a clearer way. If you realize you misunderstood, say, I thought you meant something different. My answer would be, if you need a moment, say, give me a second to think about that. These phrases protect momentum. They turn a problem into part of the conversation. Without recovery language, one missing word can shut down the whole system. With recovery language, the missing word becomes a small obstacle. Blankness becomes less frightening when you know it is not final. You can restart, you can rephrase, you can simplify, you can ask for clarification, you can use an example, you can describe the word you forgot. The conversation has more exits than your fear allows you to see. There is another important truth. Your speaking mind cannot be trained only through silent study. Silent study may fill the library, but retrieval requires opening the books. Every day, you need moments in which you ask your brain for English without looking at the answer first. Describe what you are doing, answer a question, retell something you heard, explain a decision, summarize a problem, speak before checking. The difficulty you feel during retrieval is not a sign that the practice is failing. The difficulty is the practice. When your brain struggles to find a phrase, it strengthens the root. When you check the phrase afterward and try again, the root becomes clearer. Easy recognition feels good, but effortful retrieval creates speaking power. Your first goal is not to eliminate blank moments completely. Your first goal is to shorten them and recover faster. A 5-second silence becomes a 2-second opening. A total shutdown becomes a simple sentence. A forgotten word becomes a description. A broken answer becomes a restart. These are real improvements. They are the early signs of rewiring. At the end of this chapter, remember the central distinction. You do not go blank because your mind contains nothing. You go blank because too many processes are blocking access to what is already there. Reduce the processes. Begin before the answer is complete. Use a frame. Choose available language. Recover instead of judging. Train retrieval every day. The English is not absent. The road is under construction. Chapter 2. Stop building English through translation. Translation feels responsible. It gives you the impression that you are checking the meaning carefully before you speak. For beginners, it can be useful. It helps you connect unfamiliar English with ideas you already understand. But if translation remains the center of your speaking process, it eventually becomes a ceiling. The reason is simple. A real conversation does not move at translation speed. When you think in your first language, convert the thought into English, adjust the grammar, and then pronounce it, you are asking the brain to complete several tasks in sequence. Even if each task takes less than a second, the delay becomes noticeable. More importantly, the system becomes fragile. If one word cannot be translated, the whole sentence may stop. Imagine that you want to say, "I was disappointed because the result did not reflect the amount of work we had done." If you first build this idea in your own language, you may search for exact matches for disappointed, reflect, amount, and the past perfect structure. While you search, your emotional idea becomes a grammar problem. A direct English system works differently. It connects the situation with English meaning. You remember the result. You feel the disappointment. You begin with an accessible phrase. "I was disappointed with the result because we had worked very hard." The sentence may not match the exact wording in your first language, but it communicates the truth. Direct speaking protects meaning even when the wording changes. This is a major shift. Your job is not to produce a perfect translation of your private thoughts. Your job is to express those thoughts naturally with the English you can control. Every language organizes reality differently. If you insist on carrying the exact structure of your first language into English, you create unnecessary conflict. Some ideas that require one expression in your language may use a completely different pattern in English. Automatic speaking begins when you allow English to choose its own road. To reduce translation, you must create direct links. The word exhausted should not connect only to a word in your language. It should connect to the physical feeling of having no energy after a long day. The phrase, "I cannot make up my mind," should connect to the experience of being unable to choose. "It slipped my mind" should connect to the moment you suddenly realize you forgot something. Meaning, image, emotion, and situation are faster than translation. Suppose you learn the phrase, "I am running out of time." Do not store it as 5 words plus a translation. Imagine a real moment. You have a deadline in 20 minutes. You are not finished. You look at the clock. Feel the pressure. Say, "I am running out of time." Now the phrase has a situation. Later, when the situation returns, the English has something to attach to. The brain remembers connected experiences more effectively than isolated definitions. That is why you may remember a phrase from a movie for years, but forget a word you studied yesterday. The phrase had voice, emotion, context, and purpose. It was alive. Your new English mind must be built from living connections. Begin with objects and actions around you. When you see a door, do not silently translate the noun. Think in a useful phrase. The door is slightly open. When you pick up your phone, think, "I need to reply to this message." When you look outside, think, "It looks warmer than yesterday." When you cannot find something, think, "Where did I put it?" These are direct English reactions to life. At first, your first language will still appear. Do not fight it aggressively. The goal is not to ban your language from your mind. That would create more tension. The goal is to make English available sooner. When a situation occurs, invite the English phrase before building a complete first language sentence. You can practice this through what I call instant labeling, but the label should usually be a phrase, not a single word. Instead of cup, think, "The cup is empty." Instead of traffic, think, "Traffic is moving slowly." Instead of tired, think, "I need a short break." A phrase contains grammar, rhythm, and use. It trains the mind to think in relationships, not vocabulary cards. The next stage is intention thinking. Before you speak, identify the purpose of your message in English. Are you agreeing, refusing, clarifying, comparing, warning, suggesting, or asking for time? Purpose gives the brain a smaller search area. If your purpose is to disagree politely, you can reach for patterns such as, "I see your point, but," or "I am not sure I agree with that because." If your purpose is to clarify, you can say, "What I mean is," or "Let me explain that differently." If your purpose is to suggest, you can say, "One option would be to." You are no longer translating a sentence. You are selecting a communicative action. This is how language works in real life. People do not begin every sentence by selecting grammar. They have an intention. The language serves it. By training intentions, you make English more functional and easier to retrieve. Another powerful method is image-to-speech practice. Choose a simple image, a memory, or a scene in front of you. Do not write anything. Look at it and speak. Start with what is visible. Then explain what may have happened before. Then predict what may happen next. Your mind is forced to connect meaning directly with English because there is no first language text to translate. For example, imagine a photograph of a man standing at a train station with a suitcase. You might say, "He is waiting near the platform. He looks as if he has been traveling for a long time. Maybe his train has been delayed. He keeps checking the information board, so he may be worried about missing a connection." You are not translating a prepared paragraph. You are building English from observation and possibility. This practice strengthens flexibility. There is no single correct answer. That is important because translation teaches the brain that every idea has one exact English version. Real communication is more flexible. The same meaning can be expressed in several ways. Consider the idea that someone arrived later than expected. You could say, "He arrived late." He did not get there on time. He showed up much later than we expected. It took him longer to arrive. He was delayed. When one phrase is unavailable, another can carry the meaning. Automatic speaking depends on this network of alternatives. Translation makes you search for one exact door. Direct speaking teaches you that the room has several doors. You should deliberately practice paraphrasing. Take a sentence and express the same idea with easier language. "The meeting was postponed due to unforeseen circumstances" can become, "They moved the meeting because something unexpected happened." "I am reluctant to make a commitment" can become, "I do not feel ready to promise yet." Paraphrasing proves that meaning is more important than one specific set of words. This skill becomes essential when you forget vocabulary. A learner who depends on exact translation may freeze when one word disappears. A learner who thinks in meaning says, "It is the thing you use to," or "It is a person who," or "It means that." The language continues because the idea remains available even when the label does not. Your inner English also needs common mental phrases. These are expressions you can use while thinking, not only while talking to someone. "Let me see. That does not make sense. I need to figure this out. I should have done that earlier. What am I missing? There must be another way. I am not ready yet. This is taking longer than I expected." Use these phrases during real moments. If you are solving a problem, think, "What am I missing?" If you change your mind, think, "Actually, there may be a better option." If you remember a forgotten task, think, "I should do that before I forget again." This is how English begins to enter your internal life. Do not force yourself to think in advanced English. That is another form of perfectionism. Your inner English should begin with language you can access comfortably. A simple English thought that appears immediately is more valuable than an advanced thought that requires translation. Some learners worry that thinking in simple English will make their ideas simple. It will not. The complexity of an idea and the complexity of a sentence are not the same. You can express a deep idea with clear language. In fact, clear language often reveals understanding better than complicated language. Translation also creates emotional distance. When every English sentence must first exist in another language, English feels like a code you operate from outside. Direct association changes that relationship. English begins to connect with your own memories, preferences, frustrations, jokes, and decisions. It stops being only a subject. It becomes a way you can experience part of your life. To build this connection, tell personal micro-stories. Describe a moment from your day in 4 or 5 sentences. Do not write it first. Start with a simple opening. "Something annoying happened this morning." then continue. I was preparing to leave when I realized I could not find my keys. I checked the table twice, but they were in my jacket pocket. I wasted 10 minutes looking for something I was already carrying. Personal memory creates direct meaning because you lived the event. Repeat the story later. The second version will usually be smoother. The third version may include better details. This is not memorizing a script, it is strengthening the English pathway connected to the memory. You can do the same with opinions. Choose a real preference. I prefer working early in the morning. Explain why. Give an example. Mention one disadvantage. Because the opinion is yours, you do not need to invent meaning. You only need to give the meaning English form. This is why speaking about your real life is often more powerful than repeating random textbook sentences. The brain already has the content. It can focus on building access. As translation becomes weaker, you may notice an unusual stage. You understand what you want to say in English, but the thought feels less detailed than it would in your first language. Do not panic. This is normal. Your English network is still growing. Continue using it. Add details slowly. The goal is not to replace your full first language mind overnight. The goal is to build an independent English system, strong enough for real communication. Independence grows through use. Every time you connect a situation directly with English, the pathway becomes easier to use again. Every time you paraphrase instead of freezing, the network becomes more flexible. Every time you think a small thought in English, you reduce the need for translation. The change is gradual, but it is structural. At the end of this chapter, remember this rule. Do not ask, how do I translate this exact sentence? Ask, how can I express this meaning with the English I have? The first question makes English dependent. The second question makes English active. You are not trying to become a faster translator. You are building a mind that can move from experience to English without asking another language for permission. Chapter 3. Install patterns your mouth can use immediately. Many learners try to speak by choosing one word at a time. They begin with an idea, search for the first word, check the grammar, search for the second word, and continue building the sentence like someone placing individual stones across a river. This process can produce correct English, but it is too slow for natural conversation. Fluent speech is not created word by word, it is created through patterns. A pattern is a flexible piece of language that already contains structure. It may be as short as, I am not sure if, or as useful as, one of the main reasons is that the pattern does not decide your entire message. It gives the message a shape. Your idea enters the shape, and the sentence begins moving. Consider the difference between building a sentence from zero and using a pattern. Someone asks why learning English is difficult. If you start word by word, your brain may search for because, then people, then do not have, then practice. But if your mind already owns the pattern, one of the main reasons is that you can begin immediately. One of the main reasons is that learners spend more time studying than speaking. The pattern carries grammar, rhythm, and direction. Your attention can focus on the idea. This is not cheating. It is how all natural language works. In your first language, you use thousands of familiar patterns without noticing them. You do not invent every greeting, opinion, apology, explanation, or transition from nothing. You have language pathways that have been repeated so often that they are ready before you consciously search for them. The English-speaking mind must develop the same readiness. Patterns are more powerful than isolated vocabulary because they teach words where they belong. Knowing the word reason is useful. Owning the pattern, the main reason I say that is usable. Knowing the word depends is useful. Owning it depends on what you mean by is conversational. Knowing experience is useful. Owning in my experience, the biggest difference is gives you an opening for dozens of topics. The goal is not to memorize hundreds of full answers. Memorized answers are rigid. They work only when the question matches the script. A pattern is flexible. What I find difficult can be used for work, language learning, relationships, travel, health, technology, or almost any subject. The content changes, but the mental road remains familiar. You should build patterns around speaking functions. A function is what you are trying to do with language. You may need to introduce an opinion, add a reason, provide an example, compare two ideas, disagree politely, clarify a point, describe a change, explain a result, or conclude. For opinions, useful patterns include, the way I see it, from my point of view, I tend to think that, and my first reaction is, for reasons, you might use, the main reason is that, this is largely because, or what makes the biggest difference is. For examples, you can say, a good example would be, you can see this when, or this happened to me when. These patterns form a speaking skeleton. Without a skeleton, every answer feels shapeless. With one, your ideas have places to go. Imagine that someone asks, do social media platforms help people communicate? Instead of searching randomly, use a simple sequence. Opinion? I think they make communication easier, but not always better. Reason? The main reason is that people can contact each other instantly. Contrast? At the same time, quick communication can become shallow. Example? For example, someone may send messages every day without having a real conversation. Conclusion? So they increase contact, but they do not automatically create closeness. This answer feels organized because the mind followed familiar functions. You did not need to memorize the topic, you needed a reliable route. The strongest patterns are not the most impressive ones. They are the ones you can retrieve under pressure. A phrase such as, it is important to take into consideration the fact that, may look advanced, but if your mouth cannot produce it naturally, it is not yet useful. We also need to consider, is simpler, faster, and more flexible. Automatic speaking grows through language you can own, not language you can admire. Ownership requires repetition with variation. Repeating one sentence 20 times can improve pronunciation, but it does not automatically make the pattern flexible. To install a pattern, repeat the structure with different meanings. Take, one thing I have noticed is that, and complete it in 10 ways. One thing I have noticed is that I work better in the morning. One thing I have noticed is that people speak more confidently when they stop correcting every word. One thing I have noticed is that expensive tools do not always save time. One thing I have noticed is that I remember phrases better than lists. The repeated frame becomes stable while the changing content teaches your brain to use it creatively. This is exactly what you need in conversation, a familiar structure that can carry a new idea. You can also build pattern families. A family contains several related ways to perform the same function. For uncertainty, you might train, I am not completely sure, but I would need to think about that, although my guess would be, and it is difficult to say without knowing, if one phrase does not arrive, another may. This prevents dependence on a single memorized expression. Automatic speaking should be flexible, not mechanical. Pay attention to the beginning of answers. The first 5 to 7 words are often the most important because they decide whether speech begins or silence grows. Create automatic openings for common question types. For a preference question, begin with, I would probably choose. For a past experience question, begin with, the first time I experienced that was. For a hypothetical question, begin with, if that happened, I would probably. For an opinion question, begin with, I think the answer depends on. For an explanation, begin with, the simplest way to explain it is. When the opening becomes automatic, your brain gains time to prepare the next part. The phrase acts like a moving platform. You step onto it before the full path is visible. Endings also matter. Learners sometimes begin well, but stop suddenly because they do not know how to close the idea. Train conclusion patterns such as, that is why I think, so overall, I would say, in the end, it comes down to, and that is the main difference for me. A clear ending gives your answer control, even if the middle was imperfect. Transitions connect your ideas, so you do not need to stop after every sentence. Another thing to consider is, the other side of the argument is, what makes this more difficult is, that reminds me of, and the reason I mention this is, these phrases allow speech to continue while your mind chooses the next idea. This is one reason advanced speakers sound fluent. They do not necessarily have an endless supply of ideas. They have language that helps them move between ideas. The conversation does not collapse during the search. You should also train patterns for correction. Perfectionism becomes weaker when correction has a natural form. Let me say that again. That is not exactly what I meant. A better way to put it would be, I should clarify something. What I meant to say was, These phrases teach your brain that a mistake is not the end of speech. It is a turn in the road. Suppose you say, "I am working there since 2 years." You notice the problem. Instead of stopping and apologizing, say, "I have been working there for 2 years," then continue. The correction becomes part of your fluency. Your mind learns that errors can be repaired without emotional drama. Another useful category is time-buying language. This should not become empty filler, but it can protect your thinking space. Let me think about that for a moment. That is a difficult question to answer. The first thing that comes to mind is, "I have not considered that before," but these phrases are honest and natural. They give your brain seconds without leaving English. The pattern method also changes vocabulary learning. Instead of writing down avoid, collect "one thing I try to avoid is," instead of realize, collect "I did not realize how difficult it was until," instead of likely, collect "it is more likely to happen when." This teaches pronunciation, grammar, and use together. Every new word should enter at least one sentence pattern. A word without a pattern may remain passive. A word inside a repeated pattern has a better chance of becoming speech. Let us take the word overwhelmed. You can memorize the definition, but automatic access comes from use. I felt overwhelmed when. It is easy to feel overwhelmed if. When I am overwhelmed, the best way to avoid feeling overwhelmed is. Now the word has several roads. You should speak these patterns aloud. Silent recognition is not enough. Your mouth needs physical familiarity. The muscles of speech must know how the phrase moves. A pattern that feels natural in your head may still feel awkward in your mouth if you have never said it at speed. Say the phrase slowly once, then naturally. Connect the words, stress the important part, change the content, use emotion. Imagine a person listening. A pattern becomes automatic when meaning, sound, and movement are trained together. Do not collect too many patterns at once. 10 well-trained patterns are more powerful than 100 phrases you barely remember. Choose a small group for 1 week. Use them in self-talk, recordings, answers, and real conversations. At the end of the week, they should feel easier to begin without preparation. A useful weekly set might include 1 opening, 1 reason pattern, 1 example pattern, 1 contrast pattern, 1 correction pattern, and 1 conclusion pattern. For example, the way I see it, the main reason is that a good example would be, at the same time. Let me put that differently. And so overall, I would say, with these 6 pieces, you can build dozens of answers. You can train them through a 1-minute answer. Choose a question and speak for 60 seconds. Force yourself to use at least 3 of the week's patterns. Then listen to your recording. Do not judge your accent emotionally. Ask whether the patterns appeared naturally. Did they help you begin? Did they help you continue? Did they reduce long silence? If not, repeat the same question. The second attempt matters. Many learners record 1 answer, dislike it, and move to a new topic. That wastes the learning opportunity. Repeat the answer after noticing the problem. The first version reveals weakness. The second version begins rewiring. The third version builds control. You do not need to repeat until the answer sounds memorized. Change some details. Keep the pattern, improve the flow, and let the language become more available. There is a danger in pattern learning. Some learners fill every answer with formal phrases and begin sounding artificial. The purpose is not to decorate speech. The purpose is to support thought. Use patterns that match your personality and the situation. To be perfectly honest with you, I am strongly of the opinion that may be too heavy for a simple conversation. Honestly, I think may be better. Natural English is not the English with the most words. It is the English that fits the moment. As patterns become automatic, you will notice that grammar begins to improve without constant analysis. The phrase, "one of the reasons is that," carries correct structure. The phrase, "I have been trying to," contains a useful tense. The phrase, "I would rather than," carries comparison. You absorb grammar as a working shape. This does not replace grammar study completely. It gives grammar a place to live. Rules explain why a pattern works. Repetition makes the pattern available. You need both, but speaking depends on availability. At the end of this chapter, understand the shift. Stop asking your brain to manufacture every sentence from loose words. Give it stable structures, train openings, reasons, examples, contrasts, repairs, and endings. Repeat them with changing meaning until they belong to you. Words give you materials. Patterns give you movement. Chapter 4. Train retrieval until English arrives on command. There is a painful difference between remembering something eventually and remembering it when you need it. You may recall the perfect phrase 10 minutes after the conversation ends. You may suddenly think of the answer while walking home. The English was in your mind, but it arrived after the moment had closed. Automatic speaking requires timely retrieval. Retrieval is the act of pulling language out of memory without being shown it first. It is one of the most neglected parts of language learning because it feels uncomfortable. Recognition gives you the pleasure of knowing. Retrieval exposes what is not yet available. When you see a phrase and understand it, you feel successful. When you close the book and try to say it, the mind may struggle. That struggle feels like failure, but it is exactly where memory becomes stronger. The brain does not learn only from information entering. It learns from being asked to find information. Imagine a path through tall grass. Every time you walk the path, it becomes clearer. Recognition is like looking at a map of the path. Retrieval is walking it. You can study the map for hours, but your feet become familiar only by moving. This is why rereading notes often creates false confidence. The page makes the language available, so you mistake familiarity for mastery. Then conversation removes the page and reveals the truth. You knew how to recognize the phrase, not how to retrieve it. To rewire your speaking mind, you must regularly remove support. Listen to a sentence, understand it, then pause the audio and reproduce the meaning without looking. Read a short paragraph, close it, and explain the main point aloud. Learn 5 patterns, hide them, and answer questions that require them. Watch a short clip, then retell what happened. Every time you ask your brain for language before checking, you train access. The timing of retrieval matters. If you repeat a phrase immediately after seeing it, the memory is still active. That is useful for pronunciation, but not enough for independent recall. Wait 30 seconds. Use another sentence. Return after 5 minutes. Return the next day. The gap forces the brain to reconstruct the path. This is called desirable difficulty. The task should be difficult enough to require effort, but not so difficult that you cannot recover the answer. If retrieval is always effortless, you may not be strengthening it. If it is impossible, the material may be too advanced or insufficiently practiced. A strong training cycle has 4 stages. First, meet the language in context. Second, understand and repeat it. Third, remove the support and retrieve it. Fourth, use it in a new context. Each stage serves a different purpose. Suppose you learn, I ended up staying longer than I expected. First, understand the situation. Someone planned to leave early but stayed. Repeat the sentence with natural rhythm. Then hide it and ask yourself, what happened? Try to produce the phrase. Later, use the pattern differently. I ended up buying the cheaper option. We ended up taking a taxi. She ended up changing her mind. Now the structure becomes flexible and retrievable. The new context is essential. If you can repeat only the original sentence, you may have memorized sound without owning the pattern. Automatic speaking requires transfer. The mind must recognize that the same structure can solve different communication problems. You can build retrieval through question-answer drills, but the questions must be meaningful. Instead of asking, what is the past tense of go, ask, where did you go last weekend? Instead of asking for the definition of frustrated, ask, what kind of situation makes you feel frustrated? The second question connects vocabulary with personal meaning. Personal answers are easier to retrieve because they have emotional and autobiographical connections. This is why you should create a personal English bank, not merely a general vocabulary list. Your bank should contain stories you often tell, opinions you often express, experiences that shaped you, descriptions of your work, goals, habits, preferences, and challenges. You repeatedly need this language in real life. Train it until it is ready. For example, many learners are asked, why are you learning English? They answer slowly even though the question is predictable. Build several flexible versions. I am learning English because it gives me access to more opportunities. My main goal is to communicate confidently with people from different countries. I understand a lot already, but I want speaking to feel more natural. Practice until the answer can begin immediately, then change the details so it remains alive. Prepared language is not fake when it expresses your real life. You prepare for important conversations in your first language as well. The difference is that you should prepare structures and ideas, not memorize a performance so rigidly that one unexpected question destroys you. Rapid retrieval drills can be extremely effective when used correctly. Choose a category such as food, work, travel, emotions, technology, or learning. Give yourself 60 seconds to name and describe as many related ideas as possible. Do not only list nouns. Build short phrases: a delayed flight, a crowded airport, checking in online, missing a connection, traveling with light luggage. This trains the brain to search within a meaning network. The stronger the network, the faster words appear together. Another drill is the 3-second association. Choose a word and immediately say a connected phrase. Decision: make a difficult decision. Pressure: work well under pressure. Habit: break a bad habit. Progress: notice gradual progress. This turns vocabulary into collocation and prepares it for speech. You can also practice opposite direction retrieval. Hear a meaning and retrieve a phrase. Not certain becomes I am not completely sure. Unexpectedly continued becomes it ended up lasting longer. Need time before deciding becomes let me think it over. This is closer to real speaking because conversation begins with meaning, not with a visible English phrase. Timed practice should create urgency without panic. Begin with generous time. Answer within 5 seconds. Then reduce it to 3. The goal is not to make yourself anxious. The goal is to teach the brain that language must move before perfection is complete. When you cannot retrieve a word, do not immediately look at the answer. Stay with the struggle for a few seconds. Search for a description. Use a simpler word. Create a sentence around the gap. This teaches flexibility and often strengthens memory more than instant checking. Suppose you want reliable but cannot recall it. Say, someone you can trust to do what they promise. Then check the word. Now reliable is connected to a meaning you actively constructed. The retrieval failure became useful. After checking, use the word 3 times in new sentences. She is extremely reliable. We need a more reliable system. Public transport is not always reliable where I live. Do not merely nod when you see the answer. Send it back through the speaking pathway. Spaced retrieval turns short-term access into long-term availability. Return to important phrases after 1 day, 3 days, 1 week, and several weeks. Each successful retrieval tells the brain that this language matters. The spacing prevents the memory from depending on the original study moment. You do not need a complicated application. Keep a simple list of 30 to 50 high-value patterns. Every day, choose a few at random. Hide the examples and retrieve your own. Record a 1-minute answer using 2 or 3. At the end of the week, test yourself without preparation. Random order matters because conversation is unpredictable. If you always practice phrases in the same sequence, your brain may remember the list rather than the language. Shuffle questions. Change topics. Ask a friend or use random prompts. Train the ability to access English when you do not know what is coming. Retrieval also improves when you practice at different levels of difficulty. Begin with a word, then a phrase, then a sentence, then a connected answer. For example, retrieve advantage. Then one major advantage. Then one major advantage is that. Then use it in a 30-second answer about working online. This builds from a small unit to real communication. There is a temptation to chase novelty. New words feel exciting. Old words feel boring. But automatic speaking depends more on deep access to useful language than shallow exposure to endless language. A person who can retrieve 2,000 common words and hundreds of patterns quickly may communicate more effectively than someone who recognizes 10,000 words but cannot access them under pressure. Depth beats display. Your passive vocabulary will always be larger than your active vocabulary. That is normal, even in your first language. The goal is not to make every word active. The goal is to activate the language you need most. Focus on high-frequency ideas, your personal life, your professional needs, and the situations you actually face. If you work in customer service, train explanations, apologies, clarifications, and problem-solving language. If you attend meetings, train updates, agreements, concerns, and questions. If you travel, train directions, requests, problems, and small talk. Relevance increases repetition, and repetition increases access. You should measure retrieval progress honestly. Ask, how quickly can I begin? How often do I abandon a sentence? Can I explain a missing word? Can I reuse a pattern on a new topic? Can I recall useful language after several days? These are better measures than the number of pages you studied. Do not measure only correctness. A perfectly correct answer that arrives after 30 seconds may not serve a conversation. A mostly correct answer that arrives in 2 seconds and communicates clearly is a stronger foundation. Correctness can be refined as speed and control improve. At the same time, do not turn speed into carelessness. Automatic does not mean thoughtless. The goal is efficient access. Speak clearly enough that meaning survives. Use patterns you understand. Review recurring errors outside the conversation. Then train the corrected version until it becomes easier. When you notice the same mistake repeatedly, create a retrieval contrast. If you often say, "I am living here since 2020," train the correct pattern beside the incorrect impulse. "I have lived here since 2020." Ask yourself the same question on different days. Retrieve the correct form under time pressure. Knowledge of the rule is not enough. The correct pathway must become faster than the old one. This is rewiring in its most literal form. You are not only adding information, you are changing which response wins the race. One day, a phrase that once required effort will appear without invitation. Someone will ask a question, and your mouth will begin before you consciously search. You may be surprised by your own sentence. That moment is not luck, it is accumulated retrieval. At the end of this chapter, remember that memory becomes useful through access. Stop measuring your English only by what you understand when it is shown to you. Measure what you can bring forward when nothing is visible. Recognition tells you that English is in the building. Retrieval gives you the key. Chapter 5. Build an English inner voice that never stops training. You speak to yourself all day. You plan, judge, remember, worry, compare, decide, and imagine. Much of this happens so quietly that you barely notice it. This internal language shapes attention, emotion, and behavior. It can also become one of the most powerful tools for English fluency. Most learners use English only during study time. They open a lesson, practice for 20 minutes, and then return completely to their first language. This creates a clear border. English becomes an activity that happens in a special place. Because the brain meets it only in controlled moments, it may struggle to access it during unexpected life. An English inner voice removes that border. This does not mean forcing every thought into English from morning until night. That is unrealistic and exhausting. It means creating regular moments when English becomes the language of your immediate experience. You use it to notice, plan, react, and reflect. The mind stops treating English as something that belongs only to lessons. Begin with narration. Describe what you are doing in simple language. "I need to finish this before lunch. I am looking for the file I saved yesterday. The room feels too warm. I should reply now or I will forget." These thoughts require no audience and no preparation. They train direct access inside real situations. The power is not in the complexity. The power is in immediacy. The situation happens and English appears. You can narrate the past few minutes. "I opened the email, but I did not understand the request. Then I read it again and realized they wanted a revised version." You can plan the next hour. "First, I will finish this task. After that, I need to call him. If I have time, I will go for a walk." You can evaluate a decision. This option is cheaper, but it may create more work later. These small thoughts train grammar in context. Past tense connects with memory. Future language connects with plans. Comparisons connect with choices. Conditionals connect with possibilities. Grammar becomes part of thinking rather than a rule waiting in a book. Your inner voice should also ask questions. Why am I delaying this? What is the main problem? What do I need to do next? Is there a simpler way? Questions activate retrieval because the mind must answer. Do not worry if the answer is short. I am delaying it because I do not know where to start. That is useful English. You are expressing a real psychological state directly. Emotional language is especially valuable. Many learners can describe objects but cannot describe what is happening inside them. Train phrases such as, "I am more nervous than I expected. I feel relieved now. That bothered me more than it should have. I am disappointed, but not surprised. I need to calm down before I answer." When English connects with emotion, it becomes more personal and memorable. It also prepares you for real conversations, which are not only exchanges of facts. You can use inner speech to rehearse upcoming situations. Before a meeting, imagine being asked for an update. Answer aloud or quietly. Before a phone call, prepare how you will explain the issue. Before meeting someone new, practice how you will introduce yourself. This is mental simulation. Athletes simulate movements. Musicians hear passages internally. Speakers rehearse openings. Your brain can practice language before the event. The rehearsal does not guarantee that the conversation will follow your plan, but it makes relevant pathways easier to access. The strongest rehearsal includes variation. Do not imagine only the perfect response. Imagine that the person asks a follow-up question. Imagine that you forget a word. Imagine that they disagree. Practice recovery. I do not know the exact term, but let me explain what I mean. That is a fair point. I still think this builds resilience, not only performance. Your inner voice can also become a teacher, but it must not become an abusive one. Many learners use internal English only to criticize themselves. My English is terrible. I always make mistakes. I cannot speak. These sentences are fluent, but they train fear. The words you repeat internally become part of the speaking environment. Replace vague attacks with useful observations. Instead of, "I am bad at speaking," think, "I hesitate when I have to explain reasons." That is specific and trainable. Instead of, "I never remember words," think, "I need more retrieval practice with work vocabulary." Instead of, "I sounded stupid," think, "My opening was slow, but I explained the main idea." Honesty is necessary. Cruelty is not useful. A strong inner coach identifies the problem and gives the next action. You should also create a set of English self-instructions. Keep the sentence simple. Start with the main point. Do not translate everything. Use another word. Slow down and continue. These short commands can guide you during conversation. Because they are already in English, they keep your mind inside the language. The inner voice becomes stronger through repeated daily triggers. Connect English with moments that already happen. Use English while making tea, walking, commuting, waiting, organizing your desk, or preparing for sleep. The habit becomes easier because the situation reminds you. For example, every morning, describe your main priority in English. Every afternoon, summarize what has happened. Every evening, retell one small event and one thought about it. These 3 moments may take less than 10 minutes, but they create daily continuity. Continuity matters more than intensity. A long practice session once a week does not make English feel mentally normal. Small daily use does. Another technique is silent scene commentary. When you are in a public place, describe what you notice without speaking aloud. The man near the window seems to be waiting for someone. 2 people are discussing something seriously. The shop is busier than usual. It looks as if it may rain. This trains observation, prediction, and description. Be respectful and keep the exercise internal. The goal is not to judge people. It is to connect perception with English. You can also transform your first language thoughts after they happen. If you notice a useful thought in your own language, ask, "How would I express the main meaning in simple English?" Do not translate every word. Create a natural version. This becomes a bridge toward direct thought. Suppose your first language thought means, "I should not have agreed before checking whether I had enough time." Your English version may be exactly that, or it may be simpler. "I agreed too quickly. I should have checked my schedule first." Both communicate the lesson. The goal is not linguistic loyalty to the original sentence. The goal is usable English. Writing can support the inner voice, but speaking should remain central. A short daily voice note is powerful because it captures thought in motion. Record 2 minutes about what is on your mind. Do not prepare. Listen once. Identify one useful phrase you lacked. Learn it, then record again. The second recording will often feel clearer because the first one exposed the language gap. This cycle turns your real thoughts into a personalized curriculum. Your mind may resist self-talk because it feels strange. That feeling usually disappears. You speak to yourself internally already. You are simply choosing a new language for selected moments. The awkwardness is evidence that the pathway is new. Do not perform for yourself. Speak naturally. You do not need an artificial presenter voice. Use the rhythm and tone you would use with a real person. Ask yourself questions, change your mind, laugh at a mistake, restart a sentence. Natural inner speech should feel alive. The English inner voice also helps reduce fear of silence. When you regularly hear yourself form English thoughts, your own voice becomes familiar. Many learners are uncomfortable with the sound of their English because they hear it only during stressful performance. Self-talk gives the voice a private home. You begin to trust that you can continue. You discover that you can explain ordinary life with ordinary language. You stop waiting for a special conversation partner before you practice speaking. However, self-talk alone is not enough. It cannot fully replace real interaction because another person introduces unpredictability. Use inner speech as a foundation, then test it in conversation, lessons, language exchanges, meetings, or recordings with random questions. The purpose is to prepare your system for contact, not to avoid contact forever. As your inner voice grows, you may notice spontaneous English thoughts. A phrase appears before the translation. You react to something in English. You dream partly in English. Do not turn these moments into a test. They are signs of familiarity, not magical proof of fluency. Enjoy them, but continue training. The real victory is not that English appears once. It is that English becomes available whenever you invite it. You can strengthen this by choosing a weekly thinking theme. 1 week, focus on decisions. Use phrases such as, I am leaning toward, the main advantage is, I need to consider. Another week, focus on emotions. Another week, focus on planning or reflection. The theme deepens a useful network. At the end of each day, ask 3 questions in English. What happened? What did I learn? What will I do differently tomorrow? Answer aloud. These questions connect past, meaning, and future. They turn ordinary life into speaking material. You never run out of content because you are living every day. At the end of this chapter, understand what the inner voice is doing. It is giving English more hours inside your mind. It is connecting language with reality, not only study. It is training immediate thought, personal meaning, emotional expression, and self-guidance. When English becomes part of how you notice your life, it becomes easier to use when another person enters it. Chapter 6. Train the first response before you train the perfect response. Conversation does not begin when you have finished thinking. It begins when another person gives you the turn. That turn carries a quiet pressure. Someone is waiting. Their face is in front of you. The silence feels visible. Even a simple question can suddenly feel like an examination. This is why many learners perform well during private practice but freeze when they must respond immediately. They have trained English, but they have not trained the transition from listening to speaking. That transition is a skill. When someone asks, "How was your weekend?" your brain must understand the question, choose a direction, retrieve language, and begin. If you wait for a complete answer, the pause grows. The growing pause increases self-consciousness. Self-consciousness slows retrieval. The cycle closes around you. The solution is to train the first response separately from the full answer. Your first response may be only a natural reaction. It was actually quite busy. Pretty good, although I did not get much rest. Nothing special, to be honest. These openings immediately establish meaning and buy time for the details. The first response has 3 jobs. It shows that you understood. It gives the answer a direction. It keeps your nervous system from interpreting silence as danger. You should build immediate responses for common conversational moves. When someone shares good news, respond, "That is great to hear." When someone describes a problem, say, "That sounds frustrating." When someone asks for your opinion, begin, "My first thought is." When you need clarification, say, "Do you mean?" When you partly agree, say, "I agree with the general idea, but..." These are not empty formulas. They are social signals. They help you enter the exchange before constructing a longer message. Automatic speakers often begin with a reaction, not a lecture. They say, "Really? That makes sense. I know what you mean. That is a difficult situation." Then they add content. Learners sometimes skip the reaction because they are focused entirely on producing information. Their answers may be grammatically correct but socially delayed. Train response reflexes with short prompts. Hear a statement and react within 1 second. I finally passed the exam. Your response: that is fantastic. My flight was canceled. That is awful. What did you do? I am thinking of changing jobs. Really? What is making you consider it? The goal is not to create brilliant responses. The goal is to make participation immediate. You can practice this with videos and podcasts. Pause after a speaker makes a statement. Respond as though you are in the conversation. Agree, question, react, or add a thought. Then continue the audio. This changes listening from passive reception into conversational readiness. Another useful drill is the unfinished answer drill. Give yourself a question and force yourself to begin within 2 seconds, even if you do not know how the answer will end. What is one habit you would like to change? Begin. One habit I really need to change is now. The mind must select something. Perhaps you say, checking my phone too often. Continue. I do it without thinking, especially when I am tired. This drill teaches the brain to trust movement. You do not need certainty before speech. You need a safe beginning. Some learners object, but what if I begin and then I do not know what to say? That can happen. The solution is not to return to silence. Use a continuation strategy. You can give a reason. The reason I say that is, you can give an example. For instance, you can explain a result. Because of that, you can compare. It is different from. You can add uncertainty. I have not completely decided, but you can finish honestly. That is probably the main thing. Continuation is a set of choices, not a magical flow. When you train these choices repeatedly, the mind stops seeing a question as one enormous answer. It sees a series of small moves. React. Choose a direction. Give one reason. Add one example. Close. Each move is manageable. This is especially useful for learners who believe they have no ideas. Often the problem is not a lack of ideas. It is the demand to create a long, impressive answer immediately. Reduce the task. Give one clear point. Then ask yourself, why? Answer. Then ask, can I give an example? Answer. You have created structure from simple questions. Suppose the topic is whether people should work 4 days a week. Start. I think it could be a good idea. Why? Because people may be more focused when they have enough rest. Example? Some employees waste time when they are exhausted, so fewer hours do not always mean less work. Contrast? However, it may not work in every industry. Close? So I support the idea, but it would need careful planning. The language is not extraordinarily advanced. The response feels strong because it moves. Automatic speaking is often mistaken for speed. It is really about continuity. A speaker may speak slowly but remain connected. Another may speak quickly in short bursts and then collapse. Train continuous meaning, not maximum words per minute. Pauses are allowed. The difference is whether the pause belongs to communication or panic. A natural pause comes after a complete thought. A panic pause appears because the system has stopped. Use phrasing to place pauses intelligently. The main difficulty, in my opinion, is the cost. The phrase gives you a rhythm. You pause around meaning rather than in the middle of uncertainty. Practice speaking in thought groups. Do not force an entire sentence in one breath. Say, I think the main problem is that people do not have enough time to practice speaking regularly. The pauses are controlled. Your mind can prepare the next group while the previous one is being spoken. This is how automaticity develops physically. Your mouth learns to release language in manageable units. Your brain stops carrying the whole sentence at once. You should also train question reflexes. Conversation is not only answering. Asking a relevant question reduces the pressure to perform and makes the exchange natural. After answering briefly, return the conversation. I usually work from home 3 days a week. What about you? I have never been there, but I would like to visit. When did you go? Questions keep English moving and give you listening time. They also show interest. A learner who knows how to ask simple follow-ups can participate more confidently with less language. Create follow-up families. For experiences, when did that happen? How did you feel? What happened after that? For opinions, why do you think that? Has your view changed? Do most people around you agree? For plans, when are you thinking of doing it? What is the next step? What might stop you? Train these until they appear without effort. Immediate response practice should include negative and uncertain situations. It is easy to practice only confident answers. Real life includes not knowing. Learn to say, I do not know enough about that to have a strong opinion. I have heard of it, but I am not familiar with the details. I cannot remember exactly, but I think. These are fluent answers because they communicate your actual level of knowledge. You do not need to invent information to avoid silence. You also need interruption recovery. Someone may begin speaking before you finish. You may lose your point. Instead of abandoning it completely, say, what I was going to say is, or, before we move on, there is one more thing I wanted to add. This protects your place in a conversation without becoming aggressive. Automatic speaking includes social timing. You learn when to enter, when to pause, when to react, and when to return the turn. These skills improve through interaction, but you can prepare them through simulation. Record a conversation with yourself. Ask a question in one voice, pause, then answer. Add a follow-up. Challenge your own point. You said working from home is better, but what about teamwork? Respond. This forces the mind to change direction. Better still, create a random prompt list and answer without seeing the next question. Predictability helps early practice, but automaticity must eventually survive surprise. Do not repeat only the same safe topics. Your name, job, family, and hobbies are useful, but they do not fully train adaptability. Include everyday decisions, simple opinions, past experiences, imaginary situations, and explanations. What would you do if your phone stopped working for a week? What is something people spend too much money on? Describe a mistake that taught you something. You are not preparing content for an exam. You are training the mind to find a direction quickly. When your answer is weak, do not attack yourself. Diagnose the first breakdown. Did you understand the question? Did you have an idea? Did you lack vocabulary? Did you know the words but fail to retrieve them? Did anxiety interrupt you? Each cause requires a different solution. If the idea was missing, practice simple planning. If vocabulary was missing, learn a pattern. If retrieval was slow, repeat the answer later. If anxiety blocked you, reduce the time pressure and build it gradually. A vague judgment creates no progress. The first response is powerful because it changes the emotional meaning of the moment. Silence says, I am not ready. A simple opening says, I am participating. Once participation begins, the brain often gives you more. At the end of this chapter, do not wait for the best response. Train the first useful response. React, begin, choose a direction, and build while moving. The goal is not to speak before thinking. The goal is to stop demanding that all thinking finish before speech begins. Your first sentence does not need to be perfect. It needs to open the door. Chapter 7. Speak before perfection silences you. Perfectionism often wears the clothes of seriousness. It tells you that you care about accuracy. It tells you that you should not speak until the sentence is correct. It tells you that mistakes will become habits. Some of this sounds reasonable. Accuracy matters. But when the desire for accuracy prevents practice, perfectionism becomes the enemy of improvement. You cannot build automatic speech without producing imperfect speech. This is not a motivational slogan. It is a learning reality. Automaticity grows through attempts, feedback, adjustment, and repetition. The mind needs to produce language before it can discover which pathways are weak. If you remain silent, the system receives no useful data. Many learners secretly believe that fluent people speak only when they know the sentence is correct. In reality, fluent speakers make quick choices, monitor the result, and repair when necessary. They do not experience every mistake as a personal failure. Language remains a tool, not a courtroom. Your fear may be less about the mistake itself and more about what the mistake seems to prove. You think it proves that you are not intelligent, not advanced, or not ready. That interpretation creates more pain than the grammar error. A mistake proves only that one language choice was not fully controlled in that moment. Separate performance from identity. You said the wrong tense. You are not a wrong person. You forgot a word. Your memory is not permanently weak. You pronounce something unclearly. Your voice is not hopeless. Specific errors can be trained. Global shame cannot teach you anything. The most damaging habit is editing before speaking. You create a sentence internally, notice a possible mistake, delete it, create another, reject that one, and remain silent. The listener hears nothing. You may believe you protected yourself from an error, but you also protected the error from correction. Use a two-stage model. During communication, prioritize meaning and momentum. After communication, review recurring problems. This keeps the roles separate. The speaker communicates. The learner later studies. You can monitor lightly while speaking. If an error is obvious and easy to fix, correct it. She goes there every day. Then continue. But do not turn every sentence into an investigation. If meaning is clear, keep moving and review afterward. This model is similar to writing. A writer does not usually create a perfect final paragraph in one movement. The first draft captures meaning. Editing improves form. Speaking happens faster, but the principle remains. First, allow language to exist. You need an error budget. Give yourself permission to make a certain number of mistakes during practice. For a 5-minute speaking session, say, "My goal is to continue. I am allowed to make mistakes." This changes the purpose of the session. You are not testing perfection. You are training flow. Afterward, choose only 2 or 3 errors to correct. Do not create a list of 20 weaknesses. The brain improves through focused adjustment. If you try to fix everything at once, speaking becomes heavy again. Select errors that are frequent and important. Perhaps you repeatedly forget third-person s, confuse past and present, or use an unnatural word order. Build short corrective patterns. He works, she wants, it takes. Use them in meaningful sentences. Then return to free speaking. The corrected pattern must enter speech, not remain on paper. There are also errors that do not deserve immediate attention. A slight article mistake may not block meaning. An imperfect accent may still be clear. A sentence may be less natural but understandable. Prioritize communication breakdowns and repeated structural problems. Do not spend all your energy polishing details while your speaking system is still afraid to move. Some teachers or listeners may correct you frequently. Correction can be useful, but too much correction during speech can destroy momentum. Decide what kind of feedback you want. Ask someone to let you finish, then mention the most important errors. If every word is interrupted, you are training caution more than fluency. You should also learn to tolerate the feeling of sounding less intelligent in English than you are in your first language. This is difficult. Your ideas may be sophisticated, but your available English may be simple. You may feel that people cannot see your full personality. The solution is not to avoid speaking until your English matches your identity perfectly. The solution is to let your identity expand through the English you have now. Humor, kindness, curiosity, honesty, and intelligence can appear through simple language. Complexity will grow. A person who says, "I do not agree because I think people need more time," may communicate more powerfully than someone who remains silent while searching for an advanced phrase. Use simplification as a strength. When a sentence becomes too complicated, break it. Instead of, "Although I had initially intended to complete the project before the deadline, several unexpected issues prevented me from doing so," say, "I planned to finish before the deadline. However, several unexpected problems came up, so I could not complete it." Clear speech is not inferior speech. Simplification reduces grammatical load. It also teaches you to control meaning. Advanced speaking is not the ability to create the longest sentence. It is the ability to choose a form that the situation can carry. You should deliberately practice low-stakes imperfection. Record a 3-minute answer without stopping or restarting. You may correct inside the recording, but you cannot delete it. This teaches your nervous system that mistakes can exist without disaster. Then listen with a balanced method. First, identify what communicated well. Not praise for comfort, but evidence. I gave 2 clear reasons. I recovered after forgetting a word. My example was understandable. Then identify 1 improvement. I need a better pattern for comparing. Finally, record again. The second attempt turns criticism into action. Perfectionism often avoids repetition because the learner does not want to hear the same weakness again. But repetition is how weakness changes. If your first answer was broken, Repeat the same topic. The content is familiar, so your attention can move to language. You will often sound noticeably better within minutes. This gives your brain evidence that errors are temporary. Learn to use repair language confidently. Let me rephrase that. I used the wrong word. What I meant was, I am not explaining this very well. The main point is, these phrases are signs of control. They show that you can monitor meaning without abandoning the conversation. A speaker who repairs smoothly may sound more competent than a speaker who becomes silent while trying to hide the problem. You also need to release the fantasy that everyone is watching your grammar as closely as you are. Most people are focused on the message, especially in ordinary conversation. They may notice an error and forget it seconds later. Your mind may replay it for hours. That replay does not improve English. Focused correction does. If someone judges you cruelly for learning, that reveals more about their character than your ability. But do not use this as an excuse to ignore clarity. Be courageous and responsible. Speak, observe, correct, and continue. Perfectionism can also appear as endless preparation. You keep buying courses, saving videos, creating plans, and waiting for the day you feel ready. Readiness is partly created by doing the thing before you feel ready. There is no final lesson after which conversation becomes risk-free. The mind needs exposure to real uncertainty. Start small. Ask a short question. Send a voice message. Join a brief conversation. Speak for 1 minute without notes. Each experience teaches your nervous system that imperfect English can still succeed. Success should be defined correctly. If you communicated the main idea, responded, and stayed present, the conversation was useful, even if it contained errors. If you learned one phrase you needed, it created progress. If you recovered after blankness, the system became stronger. Your standards can rise over time. Early practice may prioritize participation. Later practice can target precision, style, nuance, and naturalness. But do not demand the final stage from the beginning. Children do not wait until their language is accurate before using it. Adults have more self-awareness, which can support deliberate learning, but it can also become a cage. Use awareness after the attempt, not as a reason to avoid it. At the end of this chapter, remember that perfection is not a speaking strategy. It is an outcome that keeps moving. Even advanced speakers continue refining language. Your job is not to arrive at a point where mistakes are impossible. Your job is to become skilled enough that mistakes no longer control the conversation. Speak, notice, repair, repeat. That cycle will take you further than silent perfection ever can. Chapter 8. Rewire the nervous system that freezes under pressure. You may speak clearly when you are alone and lose half your English when another person appears. This can be deeply confusing. You practice successfully. You record a good answer. You understand what you want to say. Then someone looks at you, asks a question, and your breathing changes. Your body tightens. Your thoughts become narrow. The language that felt available minutes earlier becomes difficult to reach. This is not only a language problem, it is a pressure response. The brain does not operate separately from the body. When you feel judged or threatened, even socially, your nervous system changes how attention and memory work. Part of your attention leaves the conversation and begins monitoring danger. Am I taking too long? Did I pronounce that correctly? What does their face mean? Are they getting impatient? This internal monitoring uses the mental space needed for language. The situation may not be objectively dangerous, but your nervous system may treat it as a threat to status, belonging, or dignity. If you have had embarrassing experiences, harsh teachers, or repeated criticism, English speaking may carry emotional memory. The body expects pain before the conversation begins. You cannot solve this only by learning more vocabulary. You must retrain the experience of speaking. The first principle is gradual exposure. Do not jump from silent study to a high-pressure presentation and then conclude that your English failed. Build levels. Level 1 may be speaking alone without recording. Level 2 is recording and keeping the file. Level 3 is sending a voice message to someone safe. Level 4 is a short live conversation. Level 5 is speaking with a less familiar person. Level 6 is a meeting, class, or public situation. The exact levels depend on your life, but the idea is the same. Increase difficulty gradually enough that your system can learn success. Avoiding pressure completely protects fear. Overwhelming yourself strengthens fear. Controlled exposure changes fear. Before speaking, regulate the body. Do not use relaxation as another perfection demand. You do not need to feel completely calm. You need enough stability to remain present. Slow your exhale. Feel your feet on the ground. Release your jaw and shoulders. Look at the person rather than disappearing into your internal criticism. Remind yourself of one task. Communicate the main point. A narrow, useful goal reduces mental noise. Your breathing affects phrasing. When anxious, learners often hold their breath and then rush several words. The voice becomes tight, pronunciation becomes less clear, and the body interprets the difficulty as more danger. Speak in thought groups. Allow air. A short pause is safer than a breathless sentence. Train this physically. Say one phrase on one comfortable breath. The main reason I chose this option, pause, continue, is that it gives us more flexibility. Your body learns that speaking can be paced. Pressure also distorts time. A 2-second pause can feel like 10 seconds. Record a simulated answer and deliberately pause for 2 seconds before beginning. Listen back. You may discover that the pause sounds normal. This evidence helps correct your internal clock. You are allowed to think. Use external attention. Anxiety turns attention inward. Your grammar, voice, face, and imagined mistakes. Shift toward the message and the listener. What are they actually asking? What do they need to understand? What is the one idea you want them to remember? Communication becomes easier when you focus on service rather than performance. Suppose a colleague asks why a task is delayed. If your attention is on your English, every word feels dangerous. If your attention is on helping them understand the situation, you can say, "We are waiting for the final data. I expect to receive it tomorrow, and then I can finish the report." Clear purpose organizes language. Another powerful strategy is pre-acceptance. Before the conversation, accept that you may pause, forget a word, or make a mistake. This sounds negative, but it removes the shock. You are not hoping for failure. You are telling your nervous system that failure is survivable. Say internally, "I may not express everything perfectly, but I can clarify." This creates a recovery expectation. Many learners prepare only for the ideal version of themselves. When reality differs, panic grows. Prepare for the imperfect version and give it tools. Under pressure, reduce complexity. Use shorter sentences, familiar patterns, and clear sequencing. Stress makes working memory smaller. Do not demand your most advanced grammar in your most difficult emotional moment. Communicate first. You can say, "There are 2 reasons. First, the cost is higher than expected. Second, we need more time." This structure is strong under pressure because it limits the search. Train pressure with constraints. Give yourself 30 seconds to answer, then 1 minute. Ask a friend to choose an unexpected topic. Practice while standing, as you might in real life. Record only once without restarting. These small pressures teach the system to function outside perfect conditions. But pressure training should be followed by review and a successful second attempt. If you only create difficulty, you may reinforce helplessness. After the first answer, identify one problem, prepare a better pattern, and answer again. The nervous system learns that challenge can lead to control. You should also distinguish between useful adrenaline and panic. A little activation can improve energy and focus. Do not interpret every fast heartbeat as failure. Tell yourself, "My body is preparing me to respond." The meaning you give physical sensations can change the experience. Avoid the habit of apologizing for your English before speaking. "Sorry, my English is bad," lowers your confidence and tells the listener to search for problems. If clarification is needed, ask for it specifically. "Please let me know if anything is unclear," or simply speak. Your English does not need an apology for existing. After a difficult conversation, do not conduct an emotional trial. Perform a factual review. What did you understand? What did you communicate? Where did you freeze? Which phrase would have helped? What will you practice before the next situation? Then stop replaying the event. Repetition without correction is rumination, not learning. Create a replacement recording. If you struggled to explain something, explain it again privately. Use the phrase you needed. This gives the brain a better final memory of the event. You are teaching the pathway you want next time. Social confidence grows from repeated evidence that you can survive imperfection and still connect. One good conversation matters. One recovered mistake matters. One question asked despite fear matters. Do not dismiss these events because they were small. The nervous system learns through experience, not speeches. If your anxiety is severe and affects many parts of life, language practice alone may not be enough. Professional mental health support can be valuable. There is no weakness in treating anxiety as a real condition, but for ordinary speaking fear, structured exposure, breathing, attention control, and recovery practice can create significant change. You also need safe people. Practice with listeners who allow time and care about meaning. A supportive environment helps the brain learn that speaking can be relational rather than evaluative. Later, you can handle less patient situations more effectively. Do not remain only with safe people forever. Safety is a training ground, not a permanent hiding place. The final stage is identity exposure. Begin to see yourself as someone who uses English, not someone waiting to be allowed. Send the message, ask the question, join the call, introduce yourself. Each action updates the mind's story. You may still feel nervous. Courage is not the absence of activation. It is participation while activated. At the end of this chapter, remember that your brain cannot retrieve language freely when it believes the moment is dangerous. Rewire the body as well as the vocabulary. Breathe, simplify, focus outward, accept imperfection, and increase pressure gradually. The goal is not to become a person who never feels nervous. The goal is to become a person whose English remains available even when nervousness arrives. Chapter 9. Use shadowing to rebuild the way English moves through you. Many learners know shadowing as a pronunciation exercise. They play a sentence and repeat it. This can be helpful, but repetition alone is not enough. If you copy sounds without understanding the thought, you may train imitation without building speaking freedom. The deeper purpose of shadowing is to connect hearing, meaning, rhythm, and production so closely that English begins to move through you as one coordinated action. Your current speaking may be divided. The mind creates a sentence. The mouth waits. The eyes search for grammar. The voice begins cautiously. Each part works separately. Shadowing teaches the system to move together. When you follow a strong speaker, you do not have time to translate every word. You must receive meaning in chunks. Your mouth must prepare while your ear continues listening. You must follow stress, timing, linking, and emotion. This is close to the coordination required in conversation. However, you should not begin with audio that is far beyond your level. If the speaker is too fast, the vocabulary too advanced, or the accent too unfamiliar, you will produce noise rather than training. Choose a short passage you understand well, ideally 20 to 40 seconds. The speaker should sound natural, not artificially slow. The first stage is meaning. Listen without speaking. What is the speaker trying to communicate? What is the attitude? Where does the idea change? If you do not understand the passage, check the transcript and clarify it. Shadowing unknown language may strengthen sound, but it will not build direct speaking access. The second stage is mapping. Listen again and notice thought groups. Where does the speaker naturally pause? Which words carry stress? Which small words become weak? Does the voice rise because the thought is unfinished? Does it fall because the speaker has completed a point? For example, consider, I used to think fluency meant speaking quickly, but now I think it means expressing yourself without losing the connection. The strongest beats may fall on used to think, speaking quickly, now, expressing yourself, and connection. The smaller words support the movement. Do not pronounce every word with equal force. Equal force makes English feel heavy. Natural stress gives your mouth a path and gives the listener meaning. The third stage is echoing. Play one thought group, pause, and repeat it. Copy more than the words. Copy the speaker's intention. If the speaker sounds uncertain, do not repeat with a flat voice. If they are emphasizing a contrast, feel the contrast. Emotion helps install rhythm because it gives stress a reason. The fourth stage is close shadowing. Play the passage and speak just behind the speaker. At first, stay half a second behind. Do not panic if you miss a word. Keep moving with the next thought group. This teaches recovery. In real conversation, One missed word should not destroy the entire message. The fifth stage is independent reconstruction. Turn off the audio and express the same idea in your own words. This is where shadowing becomes speaking training rather than imitation. You may say, "I once believed fluent people had to talk fast. Now I think real fluency is staying connected to your meaning." The wording changes, but the structure and thought remain. The sixth stage is personal transfer. Connect the pattern to your life. I used to think learning more grammar would make me fluent, but now I think I need more retrieval practice. This final stage installs the language inside your own meaning network. Without transfer, shadowing can become a performance that disappears when the audio ends. With transfer, the borrowed rhythm becomes a bridge to original speech. You should also use delayed shadowing. Listen to a sentence, wait 2 or 3 seconds, then repeat it from memory. The delay requires the brain to hold meaning and language briefly. This strengthens working memory and retrieval. If the full sentence is too long, repeat the main thought, not every exact word. Accuracy can increase over time. The goal is coordination, not punishment. Another variation is silent shadowing. Listen and move your mouth lightly without producing full voice. This can help when practicing in public or when your voice is tired, but it should not replace audible practice. The voice needs real sound to calibrate pronunciation. Record yourself beside the original. Compare timing, not identity. You do not need to sound like the speaker as a person. Ask whether your stressed words are clear, whether your thought groups are connected, and whether your small words are too strong. Focus on one feature at a time. Trying to fix pronunciation, rhythm, accent, speed, and emotion all at once creates overload. One session may focus on stress, another on linking, another on endings. Deliberate attention produces change faster than vague repetition. Shadowing can reveal why your listening is weak. If you cannot physically reproduce a connected phrase, your ear may not have learned its true sound. When your mouth practices, "What are you trying to say?" as a natural movement rather than 6 isolated words, your ear becomes more likely to recognize it later. The mouth teaches the ear what to expect. This is why pronunciation training improves listening. You stop waiting for the written shape. You know how sounds change in real movement. A final consonant may connect with the next vowel. An unstressed word may become very weak. A sound may be softened or shortened. These features stop feeling like missing English. Do not exaggerate reductions until your speech becomes unclear. Natural speech is not lazy speech. The goal is smooth connection and meaningful stress. Clarity remains more important than copying every accent feature. You should shadow different kinds of voices over time. Begin with one clear speaker so your system has stability. Later, include different ages, genders, accents, speeds, and speaking styles. Automatic English must become flexible enough to understand and respond to real people. Do not change voices every day in the beginning. Your brain benefits from familiarity. Use one speaker for several sessions, then expand. Choose material that matches the English you want to use. If your goal is conversation, shadow natural dialogue and interviews. If your goal is presentations, shadow clear explanatory speech. If your goal is storytelling, use personal narratives. The rhythm of a newsreader may not prepare you for friendly conversation. Content also matters emotionally. Shadow ideas you care about. Meaningful material produces stronger attention. If you enjoy the topic, you are more likely to repeat it deeply. A useful shadowing session can take 15 minutes. Listen for meaning. Mark thought groups. Echo each group. Shadow the whole clip. Reconstruct it without audio. Transfer one pattern to your own life. This is far more powerful than repeating an hour of speech without focus. Quality of contact matters more than quantity of noise. You may notice that your voice feels artificial at first. This is normal. You are exploring movements that are not yet yours. After enough practice and personal transfer, the rhythm becomes less copied and more integrated. Do not chase a native identity. Keep your personality. Your accent can remain part of you. The objective is intelligibility, natural movement, and reliable access. You want English to carry your meaning without unnecessary resistance. Shadowing should also include questions and reactions, not only long statements. Copy short conversational pieces. What makes you say that? I had not thought about it that way. That is exactly what I mean. These phrases can enter real exchanges quickly. Practice them with different emotions: curious, surprised, uncertain, supportive, skeptical. The same words can perform different social actions through tone. Automatic speaking includes this emotional flexibility. Do not shadow when completely exhausted if you cannot pay attention. Mindless repetition may train sloppy movement. Short, alert sessions are better. On low-energy days, use an easier clip and focus on one sentence. Consistency matters. 5 focused minutes daily can produce more change than one intense session followed by a week of silence. The brain rewires through repeated signals. At the end of this chapter, remember that shadowing is not about borrowing another person's voice forever. It is about teaching your ear, brain, and mouth to cooperate. Listen for meaning, follow the rhythm, copy the movement, reconstruct the idea, make it personal. The final goal is not to repeat someone else automatically. It is to express yourself with the same ease of movement. Chapter 10. Build fluency through rephrasing, not perfect recall. At some point in every conversation, the exact word you want will disappear. This happens to beginners, advanced learners, and native speakers. The difference is not whether the word disappears. The difference is what the speaker does next. A fragile speaking system depends on perfect recall. If one word is missing, the sentence stops. A flexible system protects meaning. It changes the root. Rephrasing is the ability to express the same idea with different language. It is one of the clearest signs of real fluency because it proves that you control meaning rather than memorized wording. Suppose you forget appointment. You can say, "The time I arranged to meet the doctor." If you forget refund, say, "I want the money returned." If you forget recommend, say, "Tell me what you think I should choose." The listener receives the idea and the conversation continues. Some learners feel embarrassed by description because they think it reveals a vocabulary weakness. In reality, it reveals communication strength. A person who can define, compare, describe, and simplify is difficult to silence. Train this skill before you need it. Choose common objects and describe them without naming them. It is something you use to charge your phone when you are away from a wall. Choose actions. It means delaying something even though you know you should do it. Choose abstract ideas. It is the feeling that you can trust someone to do what they promised. This practice builds roots around missing words. You can use category, function, appearance, location, and example. If you forget stapler, say, "It is an office tool." You use it to attach papers together. It is usually small and sits on a desk. The description becomes easier when you know the available angles. For verbs, explain the action and result. If you forget interrupt, say, "To start speaking before another person has finished." For adjectives, explain the behavior or feeling. Reliable becomes someone you can depend on. Do not wait for advanced vocabulary to communicate precise meaning. Precision can come from explanation. Rephrasing also helps when your original sentence becomes too complicated. You begin, "The reason why I had not been able to," and lose control. Stop calmly. Let me say that more simply. "I could not finish because I was waiting for the information." This is intelligent fluency. Many learners continue forcing a broken sentence because they believe restarting looks weak. A clear restart is stronger than a confused ending. Use signposts. Let me put it another way. What I mean is, in simpler terms, the easiest way to explain it is, these phrases prepare the listener and give your brain a fresh beginning. Rephrasing should include levels of formality. You may need one version for a friend and another for work. "We messed up the schedule" may become, "There was an error in the schedule." "I do not get it" may become, "I am not sure I understand." Automatic speaking is not one fixed voice. It adapts. You can train flexibility by expressing one idea 3 ways. Start with a basic version, then a more natural version, then a more formal version. Basic: I do not want to decide now. Natural: I would rather think about it before I decide. Formal: I would prefer to review the details before making a decision. The purpose is not to label one version as superior. Each version serves a context. The brain becomes faster when it has options. Another useful exercise is sentence reduction. Take a long sentence and make it shorter without losing the main idea. Due to the fact that we experienced several technical problems, we were unable to complete the presentation on time. Becomes, We could not finish the presentation on time because of technical problems. Clear reduction prepares you for pressure when working memory is limited. Then practice expansion. Take a short sentence and add reason, example, and consequence. Remote work is convenient. Why? It reduces travel time. Example, instead of spending 2 hours commuting, people can use that time for work or family. Consequence? As a result, they may feel less exhausted. Reduction gives control. Expansion gives range. You need both. Rephrasing also protects you from translation. When you are tied to one first language sentence, you search for exact equivalents. When you can change the idea's shape, English has more freedom. Suppose your original thought is highly idiomatic in your language. Instead of searching for the same metaphor, ask, what is the simple truth behind this? Express that. Natural communication is more important than preserving every internal word. You should build synonym networks carefully. Synonyms are not always interchangeable, but knowing related options gives flexibility. Important may become essential, valuable, significant, or a major factor, depending on context. Learn each inside a phrase, not as a loose list. More useful than synonyms are functional alternatives. If you cannot say, I strongly object, you can say, I do not agree with this at all. Different vocabulary, same communicative force. Practice recovering from specific gaps. Create a speaking task in which you are not allowed to use one obvious word. Describe travel without saying travel. Explain social media without saying internet. This forces the brain to build alternative routes. Games like this create creativity under safe pressure. You also need narrative flexibility. When telling a story, you may forget the exact sequence or detail. Use approximate language honestly. I cannot remember the exact day, but it was around the end of the month. I do not remember his exact words, but he basically said, this allows the story to continue without inventing false precision. Fluency includes honesty about memory. In professional settings, rephrasing improves clarity. After explaining something complex, summarize. So the main point is that we need more time and clearer information. This checks understanding and gives the listener a simpler version. Use examples strategically. If an abstract explanation feels difficult, create a concrete case. By flexibility, I mean being able to change the schedule when a problem appears. Examples rescue meaning when definitions feel heavy. Comparison is another route. It is similar to, the difference is, you can think of it as, these patterns connect new ideas with familiar ones. Automatic speakers do not have a perfect sentence stored for every situation. They have tools for constructing meaning from several directions. Your practice should therefore include meaning-first tasks. Write or imagine an idea, then ban yourself from using the first sentence that comes to mind. Express it differently. This prevents one-path dependence. When listening, notice how speakers restate themselves. Natural speech contains repetition in different forms. It was not really a decision. I did not feel that I had much choice. The second sentence clarifies the first. This is not bad speaking. It is how people build shared understanding. Allow yourself to clarify after speaking. You do not need every idea to emerge in its final form. A powerful weekly exercise is the rephrasing ladder. Choose 10 useful ideas from your life. For each, create a short version, a detailed version, and a simple explanation for someone with limited English. Then speak all 3 without reading. For example, your work problem may be, short version, we are behind schedule. Detailed version, the project is behind schedule because 2 approvals took longer than expected. Simple explanation, we planned to finish earlier, but we had to wait for 2 people to say yes. The idea remains stable while the language changes. This training makes you calmer because you stop believing there is only one correct sentence. When one path closes, you know how to choose another. At the end of this chapter, remember that fluency is not perfect recall. Perfect recall is fragile. Fluency is flexible meaning. Describe, simplify, compare, restart, summarize, and try another route. A missing word should change your sentence, not end your voice. Chapter 11. Build a daily speaking reset that your brain cannot ignore. A method becomes real only when it changes what you do tomorrow morning. You can understand every principle in this audiobook and still remain stuck if your practice continues to be random. The brain rewires through repeated behavior, not agreement. The daily speaking reset is designed to train the exact sequence that real speech requires. Notice meaning, retrieve language, produce it, review the result, and try again. It does not require several hours. It requires focused repetition. Your routine should be short enough to continue on busy days and structured enough to create pressure in the right places. A useful daily session can last 20 to 30 minutes. On difficult days, use a 10-minute version. Consistency is more valuable than occasional intensity. Begin with 2 minutes of English activation. Do not study, speak. Describe how you feel, what you are doing, or what you need to accomplish. This wakes the speaking pathway before you look at any material. You may say, "I feel slightly tired today, but I want to finish this session before I start work. The main thing I need to practice is answering without translating. The content is ordinary. The purpose is access." Next, spend 5 minutes on pattern retrieval. Choose 5 patterns you have trained. Hide your examples. Complete each pattern 3 times with new meaning. One thing I have realized is that what makes this difficult is I would be more likely to say the sentences aloud. Do not merely think them. Then use 5 minutes of input to output practice. Listen to a short clip or read a short paragraph. Understand the main idea. Remove the source. Explain it in your own words. Do not try to reproduce every detail. Focus on meaning and structure. This trains the transition from comprehension to speech. It prevents listening and reading from remaining passive skills. Next, spend 5 to 10 minutes on an unexpected speaking prompt. Give yourself 2 seconds to begin. Speak for 1 or 2 minutes without restarting. Use an opening, a reason, an example, and a conclusion if possible. Record the answer. Then review for 3 minutes. Identify one strength and one priority. The strength should be factual. I began quickly. I used a clear example. I recovered after forgetting a word. The priority should be specific. I need a better way to compare 2 options. Or, I repeatedly used the wrong tense when telling the story. Learn or create one useful correction. Finally, answer the same prompt again. This second attempt is the most important part of the routine. Without it, review remains intellectual. The brain must experience the improved pathway immediately. The full routine follows a simple cycle: activate, retrieve, transform, respond, review, repeat. This cycle trains both automaticity and accuracy. It does not force you to choose between them. The first attempt reveals spontaneous performance. The review improves one layer. The second attempt integrates the correction. On very busy days, use the 10-minute reset. Speak for 1 minute. Retrieve 3 patterns. Answer 1 question for 2 minutes. Review 1 issue. Answer again. Do not skip the day because you cannot perform the perfect routine. The habit must survive real life. Your weekly structure should also have focus. Automatic speaking improves faster when each week targets one weakness. Week 1 may focus on immediate openings. Week 2 on reasons and examples. Week 3 on past stories. Week 4 on rephrasing. Your daily prompts can change, but the target remains stable. This prevents scattered effort. If you try to improve every part of English every day, attention becomes thin. Focus creates visible progress. Choose your target from evidence, not preference. The area you enjoy studying may not be the area blocking your speech. Listen to your recordings. Where does momentum break most often? If you begin slowly, train openings. If you stop after 1 sentence, train continuation. If you speak only in present tense, train storytelling. If you use the same words repeatedly, train paraphrasing. If you speak well alone but freeze with people, add live interaction. A personal system should respond to your actual failure point. You need a speaking log, but keep it simple. Record the date, prompt, 1 strength, 1 target, and 1 useful phrase. Do not write long emotional reports. The log exists to reveal patterns. After 2 weeks, you may notice that begin quickly appears as a strength more often. You may see that past tense remains a target. This evidence guides the next focus. Store recordings instead of deleting all of them. Choose 1 recording each week to keep. At the end of the month, compare the first and last. Daily change may be difficult to feel, but monthly evidence is powerful. Do not compare only accent. Compare access, length of pauses, structure, recovery, and clarity. These are the foundations of automatic speech. Your routine should include one live speaking event each week, even if short. A call, lesson, language exchange, voice chat group, workplace interaction, or conversation with a friend. Private practice builds the pathway. Live use tests whether it survives unpredictability. After the event, collect language from the real gap. What did you want to say but could not? Write the meaning. Find a natural phrase. Practice it in 3 situations. This is high-value vocabulary because life has already proven that you need it. Real communication should feed the next practice session. You also need review days. Every 7th day, do less new learning. Retrieve the week's patterns, repeat 2 earlier prompts, and listen to 1 old recording. Review prevents the system from becoming a pile of forgotten material. A reset routine should not depend on motivation. Choose a stable time and trigger. After breakfast, before work, during an evening walk. Connect the session with an existing habit. Prepare your prompt list and audio in advance so the first decision is easy. Friction kills consistency. Make the path simple. Some days will feel worse. Your mind may be tired. Words may arrive slowly. Do not interpret 1 week session as regression. Performance changes with sleep, stress, and attention. The system grows through averages. On a weekday, lower complexity but keep the contact. Use familiar prompts. Retell your day. Shadow an easy clip. The goal is to maintain the pathway. On a strong day, increase challenge. Use a new topic, shorter preparation time, or live conversation. A flexible routine respects energy without becoming an excuse. Avoid turning the routine into endless preparation. Do not spend 15 minutes choosing the perfect prompt or organizing notes. The session begins when your voice begins. You should speak more than you plan. The speaking reset also includes environment. Fill your day with English that matches your level and goals. Listen to voices you can mostly understand. Save useful phrases. Change some device settings if helpful. Follow topics you genuinely enjoy. But remember that exposure supports the routine. It does not replace retrieval and output. Watching English is not the same as training speaking. At the end of every session, finish with 1 sentence you can believe. My job is to make the pathway stronger today. Not fluent forever today, not perfect today, stronger today. This protects you from unrealistic measurement. Automaticity is built through hundreds of ordinary sessions that do not feel dramatic. One day, a familiar opening appears instantly. Another day, you rephrase without panic. Later, you finish a conversation and realize you did not translate much. These moments are the visible result of invisible repetition. At the end of this chapter, remember that your brain cannot ignore what you make it do consistently. Activate English. Retrieve it. Use it. Review it. Repeat it. Bring it into real interaction. The routine is not a small part of the method. The routine is where the method becomes your mind. Chapter 12. The 30-Day English Mind Rewiring Plan. A plan is useful only when it turns a large goal into today's action. I want to speak English automatically is inspiring, but the brain cannot practice an inspiration. It needs a specific demand. For the next 30 days, you are going to give it one. This plan is not designed to make you perfectly fluent in 1 month. That promise would be dishonest. 30 days can, however, change your direction. It can make speaking a daily behavior, strengthen direct English thought, shorten the time before you answer, activate useful patterns, and give you evidence that your mind can be trained. The plan has 4 stages. Each stage builds 1 layer of automatic speech. The first week opens the pathway. The second week builds structure. The third week adds pressure and flexibility. The fourth week brings the system into real communication. Before day 1, create a baseline recording. Choose a question that requires a personal answer. What is one change you would like to make in your life, and why? Give yourself no preparation. Record 2 minutes. Do not restart. Keep the file. Then listen once and write only 4 observations. How long did you wait before beginning? Where did you pause because language disappeared? Did you translate? Did you recover or abandon the idea? This is not a judgment, it is a map. Choose 3 high-value speaking situations from your real life. Perhaps you need English for meetings, interviews, travel, online communication, customer conversations, study, or social confidence. Your practice topics should include these situations throughout the month. Now begin. During days 1 through 7, your goal is to make English appear every day without waiting for a formal lesson. Every morning, speak for 2 minutes about your plan for the day. Use simple language. Do not write first. Every evening, describe one event that happened and one reaction you had. On day 1, train immediate openings. Create 10 questions and begin each answer within 2 seconds. You do not need to finish all 10 answers. The goal is to teach your mouth to enter. Use openings such as, I think the main reason is, for me, it depends on, and the first thing that comes to mind is. On day 2, train direct association. Walk through your environment and describe actions, conditions, and intentions. The window is open because the room is warm. I need to charge my phone before I leave. I am putting this here so I do not forget it. Avoid isolated labels. Think in phrases. On day 3, build your first 6 pattern frames. Choose one for an opinion, reason, example, contrast, clarification, and conclusion. Complete each pattern with 5 different ideas. Speak aloud until the opening feels physically easier. On day 4, practice retrieval. Review your 6 patterns once, hide them, and return after 10 minutes. Try to produce them from meaning. Then use 3 in a 1-minute answer. On day 5, tell a personal story from the past. Use a simple structure: situation, event, result, lesson. Repeat the story twice. In the second version, improve only the sequence and one recurring grammar problem. On day 6, practice rephrasing. Choose 10 common words and explain each without saying it. Then take 5 sentences from your own life and express each in 2 different ways. On day 7, review. Repeat the day 1 opening drill. Retell the day 5 story. Listen to 1 recording from the week. Write 1 piece of evidence that access improved and 1 target for the next week. Week 1 may feel simple, but simplicity is deliberate. You are establishing frequency. The mind must learn that English is not an event it can postpone. It is a daily pathway. During days 8 through 14, your goal is connected answers. You will stop treating speaking as one sentence and begin building short, organized responses. On day 8, train the opinion chain. Answer 5 questions using opinion, reason, and example. Keep each answer under 1 minute. Focus on clear direction, not advanced vocabulary. On day 9, train comparison. Compare 2 options from your life: working early or late, living in a city or a small town, learning alone or with a teacher. Use a common point, a difference, and your preference. Repeat 1 comparison without notes. On day 10, train explanation. Choose a simple process you understand well, such as making tea, applying for something, editing a video, preparing for a trip, or solving a common work problem. Explain it step by step. Then explain it again in fewer words. On day 11, train reaction and follow-up. Listen to short statements from a video, podcast, or friend. Pause and react immediately. Add 1 question. That sounds difficult. How did you handle it? That is interesting. What made you choose that? This day develops participation, not speeches. On day 12, train continuation. Speak on 1 topic for 3 minutes. Whenever you feel the answer ending too early, use a continuation move. Add a reason, example, contrast, result, memory, or question. The objective is not to fill time with empty words. It is to discover more paths inside one idea. On day 13, train correction without stopping. Record a 2-minute answer. If you notice an error, correct it naturally and continue. You are not allowed to restart the recording. Listen back and notice whether the correction destroyed momentum. Usually, it will sound less dramatic than it felt. On day 14, review the week's patterns. Choose 3 earlier questions at random and answer them again. Compare the answers with the first attempts. Look for faster beginnings, clearer organization, and better recovery. During days 15 through 21, your goal is flexibility under controlled pressure. The previous weeks gave you pathways. Now you will make those pathways work when the topic, time, or direction changes. On day 15, reduce preparation time. Use random questions and begin within 2 seconds. Speak for 90 seconds. Do not choose only topics you love. Include ordinary subjects you have not prepared. On day 16, use the missing word challenge. Choose a topic and ban 5 obvious words. If the topic is work, you may ban job, office, boss, meeting, and money. Explain your ideas through alternatives. This trains the mind to protect meaning. On day 17, practice shadowing with transfer. Choose a 30-second clip. Understand it, map the rhythm, echo it, shadow it, then explain the same idea in your own words. Finally, connect one pattern to your life. On day 18, practice disagreement and uncertainty. Respond to opinions without becoming silent or aggressive. I understand why people think that, but I agree up to a point. I do not know enough to be certain, although these responses are essential because real conversation is not always comfortable agreement. On day 19, simulate pressure. Stand up, set a timer. Imagine you are answering in a meeting, interview, or public situation. Use shorter sentences and clear structure. Before you begin, exhale slowly and choose one communication goal. On day 20, practice interruption and recovery. Record a question, begin answering, then play a sound, or stop yourself halfway. Resume with, "What I was saying is," or "The main point I wanted to make is." This may feel artificial, but it trains return after disruption. On day 21, conduct a mid-plan test. Use the same question from your baseline recording. Record 2 minutes without preparation. Do not listen to the old version first. Then compare. Measure the delay before speaking, the length of pauses, the structure, the number of abandoned ideas, and your ability to rephrase. Do not demand perfection. Look for movement. If the improvement is small, identify the bottleneck. Perhaps your openings are faster, but vocabulary remains passive. Perhaps your language is clear alone, but pressure still blocks it. The final week should target that evidence. During days 22 through 30, your goal is integration. English must leave isolated practice and enter interaction, personal expression, and real decisions. On day 22, prepare your personal introduction in 3 lengths: 15 seconds, 45 seconds, and 2 minutes. Do not memorize every word. Build flexible points: who you are, what you do, what interests you, and what you are working toward. Practice responding to 2 follow-up questions. On day 23, prepare one professional or practical situation you genuinely face. Explain a project update, ask for support, describe a problem, make a request, or clarify a misunderstanding. Use language you may need soon. On day 24, have a live conversation or send several voice messages. Your goal is not to impress. Your goal is to use one trained opening, one clarification phrase, and one follow-up question. Afterward, record the language gap that appeared. On day 25, repair the real gap. Learn the phrase you needed yesterday. Use it in 5 new sentences. Recreate the conversation and answer again. This day teaches you that real life can design your curriculum. On day 26, tell a meaningful story. Choose an experience that changed your thinking, taught you something, or made you laugh. Tell it in 3 to 5 minutes. Focus on sequence, emotion, and why the story matters. Do not overload it with details. On day 27, explain an opinion you care about. Speak for 3 minutes. Then challenge yourself with the opposite position. You do not need to believe it. The exercise trains flexibility and language range. On day 28, conduct a conversation simulation with unpredictable follow-ups. Ask a friend, teacher, or digital tool to question your answers. When you do not know, say so naturally. When you disagree, remain clear. When you lose a word, rephrase. On day 29, review the entire month. Retrieve your most useful 20 patterns without looking. Retell one story from week 1. Repeat one shadowing clip. Listen to selected recordings. Write 3 specific changes you can hear. On day 30, create your final recording. Use the baseline question first. Then answer a new, more difficult question for 3 minutes. What has changed in the way you think about speaking English, and what will you do next? When you finish, do not ask whether you are now perfectly fluent. Ask whether the system is different. Does English appear sooner? Can you begin with less preparation? Do you use patterns instead of isolated words? Can you continue after a mistake? Can you explain a missing word? Does your inner voice use more English? Do you know how to practice the exact layer that fails? These are structural changes. Protect them. After 30 days, continue with another cycle. Do not repeat the exact plan mechanically. Choose a new primary target. The first cycle may have improved openings. The second may focus on storytelling. The third may focus on professional communication, pronunciation, or live confidence. Automaticity is not a finish line. It is the result of repeatedly moving important language from effortful use into easier use. You should also create a maintenance minimum. Decide the smallest speaking practice you will continue even during busy weeks, perhaps 10 minutes a day and one live conversation a week. A skill that is never used becomes slower. Keep the pathway open. There will be periods when progress feels invisible. This does not mean the brain has stopped adapting. Some changes are accumulating beneath performance. Continue measuring monthly, not emotionally after every session. Your mood is not an accurate language test. If you miss several days, do not create a dramatic restart. Return with one short session. Shame increases the distance. Action closes it. The 30-day plan succeeds when it teaches you that speaking is trainable. You no longer need to search endlessly for the perfect method. You have a cycle. Identify the breakdown. Choose a focused exercise. Retrieve, speak, review, repeat, and test in real life. This is the speaking reset, not one emotional promise. A practical return to the pathway, again and again, until the pathway becomes the natural route. Closing, the moment English stops feeling like something you must assemble. There will be a moment when you answer a question and do not immediately know how you did it. The sentence will arrive before the old translation process finishes. You will use a phrase you practiced weeks earlier. You will forget one word and calmly explain it another way. You will hear yourself continue after a mistake instead of disappearing into silence. The moment may be small, nobody else may notice, but you will know that something inside you has changed. Automatic speaking does not arrive as a dramatic transformation in which every word becomes perfect overnight. It arrives through evidence, a faster opening, a cleaner thought group, a natural reaction, a story told with fewer interruptions, a conversation in which you remain present. These small events are not separate from fluency, they are fluency being built. At the beginning of this audiobook, we identified the real problem. You may already possess enough English to communicate far more than you currently do. The language is present, but access is slow. Translation, perfectionism, weak retrieval, nervous pressure, isolated vocabulary, and random practice create distance between meaning and speech. You have now learned how to shorten that distance. You learned that the blank mind is usually an overloaded mind, not an empty one. You learned to begin with enough language rather than waiting for a complete answer. You learn to connect English directly with situations, intentions, images, and emotions. You learn to install flexible patterns that give ideas a structure. You learn that recognition is not retrieval, and that retrieval must be practiced without support. You learn to build an English inner voice, train the first response, speak before perfection silences you, regulate pressure, use shadowing as coordinated movement, and protect meaning through rephrasing. You learn that a daily routine is not an extra part of the process. It is the place where the process becomes permanent. Now the responsibility changes. You cannot claim that speaking is mysterious. It may still be difficult, but difficulty is no longer a fog. You can identify what is happening. When you freeze, ask what overloaded the system. When translation slows you down, return to direct meaning. When vocabulary remains passive, retrieve it. When an answer has no structure, use a pattern. When pressure closes the pathway, breathe, simplify, and focus on the listener. When a word disappears, rephrase. When a mistake appears, repair and continue. When motivation disappears, follow the routine. This is a mature way to learn. You stop waiting for confidence to rescue you. You build evidence. You stop blaming your memory in general. You train specific access. You stop collecting endless advice. You perform the next useful repetition. The strongest English mind is not the one that knows every word. It is the one that can work with what it knows. There will always be unfamiliar topics, unexpected accents, difficult emotions, and moments when your language feels slower. Automaticity does not remove challenge, it gives you a system that can respond to challenge. Think about the person you are becoming, not a person who never hesitates, but a person who knows how to begin. Not a person who never makes mistakes, but a person who keeps meaning alive. Not a person who memorizes perfect speeches, but a person who can adapt. Not a person who needs English to feel easy before using it, but a person who makes English easier by using it. That identity is built through actions. Every time you think one direct thought in English, you strengthen it. Every time you retrieve a phrase before looking, you strengthen it. Every time you answer within 2 seconds, you strengthen it. Every time you recover from a missing word, you strengthen it. Every time you record again after correcting one weakness, you strengthen it. Your brain listens to repetition more than desire. You may want fluency deeply, but the brain changes according to what it repeatedly performs. Give it the performance you want to become natural. Ask it to retrieve. Ask it to connect. Ask it to continue. Ask it to adapt. Do not wait until you have more vocabulary before you start using your current vocabulary fully. Do not wait until your grammar is perfect before training conversation. Do not wait until fear disappears before building pressure tolerance. Waiting can look patient while quietly becoming avoidance. Begin with today's English. Use the words you can access. Build shorter sentences. Give one reason. Tell one small story. Ask one follow-up question. Record one answer. Correct one recurring pattern. Then return tomorrow. You do not need to prove your intelligence in every sentence. You need to communicate. Clear, honest English is powerful. It allows your real ideas to enter the world. For many learners, English has remained outside their identity. It belongs to teachers, textbooks, native speakers, interviews, and distant future plans. Bring it closer. Use it to describe your morning. Use it to explain your work. Use it to express annoyance, gratitude, uncertainty, humor, and hope. English becomes yours when it carries your life. The speaking reset is not about pretending to be someone else. It is about removing the mental barriers that prevent your own voice from moving through another language. Your accent does not need to disappear. Your personality does not need to become more formal. Your first language does not need to become an enemy. You are building an additional system, not destroying the person who existed before it. A multilingual mind is not divided, it is expanded. Respect the time this requires. Automatic responses are built through hundreds of meetings between meaning and language. Some pathways will become fast quickly, others will need months. You are not behind because the process is gradual. You are only stuck when the practice never reaches the failing skill. Train honestly. If you spend an hour watching English and no time speaking, do not call it speaking practice. If you reread phrases but never retrieve them, do not expect automatic access. If you practice alone for years but avoid interaction, do not expect pressure to disappear by itself. The mind adapts specifically. This truth may sound demanding, but it is freeing. You do not need to improve everything at once. You need to train the next bottleneck. Perhaps your next bottleneck is beginning. For 1 week, begin answers quickly. Perhaps it is continuation. Add reasons and examples. Perhaps it is professional vocabulary. Build personal patterns. Perhaps it is fear. Schedule controlled conversations. Specific work creates specific change. There will be days when your English surprises you positively. There will also be days when familiar words feel far away. Do not build your identity from either extreme. Trust the routine more than the mood. A bad speaking day does not erase the pathway. Return to it. When you listen to your earliest recording after several months, you may hear things you did not notice at the time. The long pause before the first sentence, the repeated translation, the abandoned ideas. Then you will hear the newer version. It may still contain mistakes, but the voice will move differently. It will sound more willing to continue. That willingness is one of the deepest changes in fluency. The mind no longer treats English as a fragile performance that must be protected. It treats English as a working tool. A tool can be used imperfectly, adjusted, sharpened, and used again. Before you close this audiobook, make one commitment that can be measured. Not, I will become fluent, choose an action. I will record one answer every day. I will have one English conversation every week. I will train 5 patterns until I can use them without reading. I will stop restarting every imperfect sentence. Write the commitment somewhere visible. Then begin today, before motivation has time to become another plan. Subscribe to the Speaking Reset if you are ready to keep building this system. This community has grown because thousands of learners are tired of understanding English only in theory. They want English that appears in real time, under real pressure, inside real life. In the comments, write, "I will make English available." Do not write it as a wish, write it as an instruction to your future practice. You are not waiting for an English mind to arrive. You are creating it every time meaning becomes speech. Train the path until the path becomes the instinct. Train the instinct until speaking feels automatic. Before you leave, imagine the next real moment in which English will be required from you. Do not imagine a perfect future version of yourself. Imagine yourself as you are now. Perhaps someone asks you a question during a call. Perhaps a stranger begins a conversation. Perhaps you need to explain a problem, introduce yourself, disagree, request help, or express an opinion. Notice the old reaction that may appear. The mind wants more time. It wants a complete sentence. It wants certainty. It wants protection from error. Now give it a new instruction. Begin with what is available. You hear the question. You understand the main point. Instead of translating the entire answer, you choose an intention. You are going to explain, agree, clarify, or ask. A familiar opening arrives. The main thing is, "I think it depends." What I mean is, your voice begins. The first sentence is not extraordinary, but it is alive. Because it is alive, the next sentence has somewhere to go. You may pause. You may change one word. You may realize that the sentence is becoming too complicated. This time, you do not interpret that as disaster. You say, "Let me explain that more simply." You return to the main point. The listener follows you. Communication continues. This is what you are training for, not an imaginary performance in which nothing goes wrong, a real exchange in which you remain capable when something does. The automatic English mind is built from trusted responses. It trusts that an opening will appear. It trusts that a missing word can be described. It trusts that an error can be corrected. It trusts that silence can be used briefly without becoming surrender. It trusts that simple language can carry important meaning. Trust is created by experience. That is why your next practice matters more than another promise. When you finish this audiobook, choose one question, any useful question. Ask it aloud. Give yourself 2 seconds, then answer. Do not write. Do not search for a model response. Let your current system reveal itself. If you hesitate, use an opening. If you stop, add a reason. If a word disappears, describe it. If the sentence breaks, restart clearly. Speak for 1 minute, then listen. You are not listening to decide whether you deserve confidence. You are listening for one trainable point. Perhaps your answer began slowly. Perhaps it lacked structure. Perhaps your pronunciation became unclear when you rushed. Choose one issue, build one correction, answer again. That second answer is the beginning of the reset. Repeat this process until your brain understands a new rule. Difficulty is followed by adjustment, not retreat. The old learning cycle may have been difficulty, embarrassment, avoidance, and more passive study. The new cycle is difficulty, diagnosis, correction, and another attempt. One cycle protects weakness, the other converts weakness into skill. Be strict about this difference. Watching one more video after a difficult conversation may make you feel productive, but it may not repair the moment that failed. Return to the failed function. If you could not disagree, train disagreement. If you could not explain a delay, explain it again. If you forgot a key phrase, retrieve it tomorrow without looking. Let real life tell you what to practice. You do not need to fear discovering weakness. A hidden weakness controls you. A visible weakness can be trained. As the weeks pass, your English may begin to feel quieter inside your mind. At first, speaking involves loud internal instructions. Choose the tense. Find the word. Do not make a mistake. Later, some of these instructions disappear because familiar patterns begin working without supervision. This is one meaning of automaticity. The mind becomes less crowded. You still think, you still choose, but the lower-level decisions require less conscious energy. You can focus on the person, the idea, the emotion, and the direction of the conversation. That freedom is not created by speaking recklessly. It is created by practicing carefully enough that common language becomes reliable. Build reliability before chasing complexity. Make "I am not sure but" automatic before collecting rare expressions for uncertainty. Make clear past stories automatic before forcing complicated narrative grammar. Make basic rephrasing automatic before depending on an enormous vocabulary. A strong foundation does not make you sound basic forever. It gives advanced English somewhere stable to stand. You will continue learning new words, grammar, pronunciation, and style. The difference is that you will ask a better question about everything you learn. How will this enter my speech? A new word should enter a phrase. A phrase should enter a personal sentence. A sentence should be retrieved later. A pattern should be used on a new topic. A pronunciation feature should be spoken and heard. Knowledge should travel toward communication. Do not allow your notes to become a graveyard of language you once understood. Choose fewer items and activate them. One phrase used 10 times across real meanings is more valuable than 10 phrases copied once. Depth may feel slower, but it creates speed where speed matters. Protect your attention as well. Modern learning encourages endless switching. One short clip leads to another, one method leads to another. You collect stimulation while the speaking pathway receives no sustained repetition. Automaticity requires staying with material long enough for it to become familiar. Repeat the answer, repeat the pattern. Return after several days. Use it with another person. Let the brain know that this language matters. Boredom is not always a sign that you need new content. Sometimes it is the point at which familiarity is beginning. Learn to distinguish dead repetition from deepening repetition. Dead repetition has no attention or variation. Deepening repetition has a purpose. You change the example, speed, emotion, listener, or context while strengthening the same pathway. Your future fluency will be made from language you have met more times than you can remember. There is also a social truth you should carry. Communication is shared work. You are not solely responsible for producing perfect English while the other person judges. A good listener asks questions, clarifies, and helps meaning develop. You are allowed to say, "Could you say that again? Do you mean, I am not sure I understood the last part." These are not signs that the conversation failed. They are conversation. Do not pretend to understand when you do not. False understanding creates more pressure later. Clarification is a fluent skill. Likewise, give yourself permission to say that you need time. I would like to think about that before I answer. In some situations, an immediate response is not necessary. Automatic speaking means language is available. Not that every complex decision must be made quickly. Use speed intelligently. Your English voice should become more honest, not merely faster. It should allow you to say, "I disagree. I do not know. I need help. That hurt me. I changed my mind. I am proud of this." Fluency becomes meaningful when it gives your real inner life more ways to reach other people. This is why direct association matters so deeply. When English connects with your genuine experiences, it stops sounding like borrowed classroom material. The language becomes warmer. Your stories have detail. Your opinions have direction. Your humor begins to appear. The listener meets you, not only your grammar. Do not sacrifice that voice while trying to sound advanced. Learn from strong speakers, but do not become a collection of copied expressions. Choose patterns that fit the person you are. Speak clearly. Speak responsibly. Let complexity grow from real need. One day, you may help another learner who is still trapped in the blank moment. They may tell you that they understand everything but cannot speak. You will know what that feels like. Do not give them empty advice. Tell them that the pathway can be trained. Tell them to begin before the answer is complete. Tell them to retrieve instead of only review. Tell them to repeat the real function that failed. Your progress can become evidence for someone else. But first, create that evidence for yourself. Tomorrow, when the routine feels ordinary, remember that ordinary practice is not small. The brain is physical. Repeated use changes efficiency. Every successful retrieval makes future retrieval more likely. Every calm recovery reduces the emotional power of mistakes. Every direct English thought weakens unnecessary translation. You may not feel the pathway changing in the moment, just as you do not feel strength growing during one exercise. The change becomes visible when a demand that used to overwhelm you becomes manageable. Stay long enough to meet that version of yourself. That is the reset. Begin.